meeting to order tonight. Commissioner Hurley's going to give our invocation and lead us in the pledge this evening.
If you would bow your heads, please. Dear Lord, we thank you once again for the opportunity to come together. We're here tonight to reflect upon the things that we've been able to accomplish, give honor to some. We're here to conduct business on the behalf of our city and all the residents here. And we're here to plan for the future and make decisions that will impact us from now on. So in all these things, we give you thanks and ask for your help and your guidance, your leadership. Let it lead us and guide us in all decisions that we do. We ask that you keep your hand on our men and women in the armed forces and our public safety as they watch over us and provide the liberties that we so richly enjoy. We ask all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We need a bigger room, I think. All right. Well, we'll probably clear out some people here real quick. All right, it's close to the graduation time, right? End of the school year. All right, so we don't have any proclamations this evening, but we've got some presentations to make, and so we want to recognize some Leesburg High School honor roll students this evening. I think that's what the group of you are here. So I'm going to come up to the podium there, and maybe we'll just have you come up as I read your names one by one, and
just let them congregate here as a group when they come up.
we can do it that way. Okay, we can do that. All right, let's do that. So okay. So I had another commitment the other night when you had your awards at the high school, and so I kind of snuck out there, and everybody was leaving, I think, just as I got there, so I got to say hi to a few of you. But you had your awards night last Thursday night, I think it was, and so so congratulations to all the students at high school for their hard work and that the commitment that they put towards their school and their future, and I know you're going to go on to great things. So we want to recognize some of you tonight. We have Kristen Berry. Go ahead and come up here. Yes, ma'am.
Face that way. Come up here and face that way.
You know what? I'm still going to come up here and shake hands, and then you can line up. So come here. I'll shake your hand, Kristen. Congratulations. Okay. All right. Quan Shu. Xiao, am I saying that? Did I say that right? Maybe they're not here. I had to say a name for somebody that wasn't here. Hannah Fawnin. Nope, not here. Dylan Humphrey. There he is. Congratulations. I think I saw you the other night. Garrett McGregor. Garrett here. Sarah Mooney. I know it. Moonage. Okay. All right. Come on. Thank you. Fernando Rivera. And Luis Rivera. Simon Ramos. Olivia Robinson. That's a great name. That's my mom's name. Skylar Rooney. Arcadia Schwartz. Did you pass your... They all have straight A's. These are all straight A's. Katie, did you pass your lifeguard test? All right. So she's one of our lifeguards for the city now. Paige Schwartout. Anaya Walker. India White. Amanda Woodley. Taylor Woods. right, now, so you guys are, everything are juniors? All freshmen?
I'm a junior.
Junior, freshmen, sophomores in here, okay. And the rest of these are seniors. Emily Bailey. Alicia Barnhill. Seniors have something better to do, probably. Samantha Chapman. Jabari Giles. Joshua Langford. Joshua. William Pruitt. Carlos Rangel. Andrew Robinson. Austin Stowell. They're getting ready for graduation. So, Courtney Schwarl, am I saying that right? That's the same.
Fourth out.
Okay, yes. And Cassian Williams. Congratulations. All right, good job, everybody. So these are some of our best students here at Leesburg High School. They represent all right, keep it up. Yes, bro, I think that's it. Thank you, guys. Give them a chance.
Pretty good sized group. That's what David was giving me that.
All right. Our next item on the agenda, we have a presentation for Swimming for Life, Water Safety by Jim Harrison.
First off.
First off, I want to thank the council and the city of Leesburg for participating with Swimming for Life over the past few years in our scholarship program. We are a nonprofit dedicated to drowning prevention and water safety education. And for the last 5 years, we've been having Water Safety Day, and this year is no different. On May the 20th at your Venetian Gardens, there will be a free event. It's about a 3-hour program. It's all dedicated to water safety education. It has interactive activities for the children and some educational components for the adults. We want to extend that invitation out to all of you that are here. Tell your friends and neighbors. There's also a mock drowning, which is a real-time mocked drowning, which will enlighten a lot of us as to what goes on in case of an accident at the water. So I would invite each of you to come to that. The other thing that I wanted to talk to you tonight about is on our website, which is www.swimmingforlife.com. There is a scholarship application, and we are offering scholarships to children throughout Lake County. And the qualifications are on the website. They're very minimal, but I would ask that each of you, even if you don't need the scholarships, surely we know somebody. We have funds available to do approximately 800 children this year in Lake County. So last year we had a good turnout here in Leesburg, and so we'd like to invite you guys to go to our website, look at what www.swimmingforlife.com is and what we're all about. And because the thing that takes the lives of most of our children between 1 and 4 is unintentional accidental drowning. And we're in Lake County with 1,400 named lakes, and so we need to be aware of that. And that's what our purpose is pushing awareness to water safety. It's getting hot, and it's summertime, and what draws kids to water? Heat and summertime. So we can all play our part in that. The other thing that I want to say in closing, again, is thank you, City of Leesburg, and thank you, Council, for all of the part that you play in this activity daily. This year, in your city, you had 12 of your lifeguards and 12 of your instructors are now WSI certified water safety instructors. So they'll be at your facilities here in Leesburg, and they'll be teaching the Red Cross water safety instructions, the different levels from parent-child through level 6, learn to swim. So again, thank you for allowing me to come and speak to you folks. And again, we're honored to be able to partner with not only Leesburg, but 5 other cities in Lake County getting drowning prevention. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison. Okay, we're going to go to the consent agenda now, and this is part of the agenda where the commission can pull items if there are any that would like to be pulled. Otherwise, these are items that we vote on as a group to expedite the meeting, and then if there's any items that want to be pulled, we'll vote on those separately. So are there any items that the commission would like to pull this evening?
4C3.
Any others?
None for me.
I've got my Commissioner?
No, thank
Okay, all right.
I move to approve the remaining items.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve all the items on the consent agenda except for 4C3. Any discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner Rovak?
Yes.
Commissioner Christian?
Yes.
Commissioner Hurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Dennison?
Yes.
Mayor Bone?
Yes. Item 4C3.
Just has to be read by title only.
Second.
Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Leesburg, Florida, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute an interlocal agreement between Lake County, Florida and the City of Leesburg regarding continuity of operations for emergency communications, including E911, and providing an effective date.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion.
And I brought this up last year. My problem with this is that the county consolidated this service, the 911 emergency communications, and so every city but Leesburg saved a lot of money. It's like 20-30 grand a year a piece for everyone else, and we're expected to just provide backup and continue not saving that money, but we don't get anything. And I think the county and other cities should kick in for us providing the backup. I don't think it's fair. We're asked to do a lot, and I don't think that we get a particularly lot back from the county, and it's not recognized. So.
Is there anything we can do to?
Is Chief Hicks in the room?
No, he stepped out, but I can speak on some of that for him. Chief Johnson, Leesburg Fire Department. That only backup only comes up in case of emergency, i.e. EOC stuff.
I know, but we could have let them take over ours like they did everyone else and save the money.
That's PD's question then at that point.
You don't want to answer.
I don't have an immediate I can't address that.
Okay.
So if you want to put just hold until Chief Hicks gets back to the room.
Okay. Yeah, we'll come back. I think what we're going to do is we're going to just.
Lieutenant Iozzi, can you address the reasons on how we functioned with the dispatch and the 911 setup at the county?
Joe Iozzi with the Leesburg Police Department. I know that Major Rockefeller has been working with the county and the other municipalities in order to facilitate that. At this point, it appears just to be a contingent agreement, but I don't have any of the details on it.
Will you grab Chief Hicks?
We're hosting the Citizens Academy. It's the first night, so we had to step out to talk to those folks. And I
Okay.
wanna get with them.
Can we-
Throw a bug in his ear to come back as soon as he can.
Will do.
And then I
well,
would ask
we
that
can-
we just.
We'll just come back to this
back to
later
it,
in the meeting
absolutely.
tonight? Okay, all right.
My apologies.
No, fine, thank you. All right, so we're going to hold off on item 4C3 until later in the meeting here tonight, and we'll come back to that. All right, so we'll go to public hearings and non-routine items. Item 5A.
I'll introduce and ask to be read by title only, please.
An ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, vacating an unused portion of right-of-way consisting the south 100 plus minus feet of 3rd Street, being approximately 30 by 100 feet, 0.07 acre. Said property generally located south of West Magnolia Street at the terminus of South 3rd Street and north of the Magnolia Trail, lying in Section 26, Township 19 South, Range 24 East, Lake County, Florida, and providing an effective date.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion and second, discussion. I think I had asked Al a question the other day, just, is there any need for us on that, the half of the easement? Because we abut the property there as well. With, I think, one of the tanks.
It's adjacent to the water plant property, and I thought it was the property, but it's split, and we abandoned it for purposes of no one using it right away because they're adjacent property. So we're looking forward to using that.
So we will get half of,
In fact, I would have liked to have had the whole thing, but I don't think we can do that, so.
Will you address that, Dan?
Dan Miller, Planning and Zoning Manager. In the process of this vacation, I think the city attorney will concur that the property will be vacated by the city, and the split, half will go to the property owner to the east and half to the west. And the west side is the city side, I believe.
So who owns the property now?
It's a platted right-of-way.
So the city is.
The city attorney can address the law on vacating easements there.
Well, the quote-unquote ownership of the property actually is half and half to the center of the road, subject to the platted dedicated easement on the subdivision plat. And when that easement is vacated, which is what's before you tonight, that easement goes away and the owners on each side actually own half. For the city to get the other half, the owner on that side would have to deed it to the city.
Or vice versa.
Yeah. That's Florida law. It's not subject to change by the commission.
Okay. So that's what this would do then, it would split it, okay. All right, any other discussion? Any comments from the public? Okay, roll call.
Commissioner Christian?
Yes.
Commissioner Hurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Dennison?
Yes.
Commissioner Roebuck?
Yes.
Mayor Bone?
Yes. Okay, item 5B, second reading here.
I'll introduce and ask to be read by title only.
An ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, annexing certain real property consisting of approximately 62.8 acres and being generally located on the east side of U.S. Highway 27, north of the intersection of U.S. Highway 27 and Windmill Road, lying in Section 25, Township 20 South, Range 24 East, Lake County, Florida, providing that said property so annexed shall be liable for its proportionate share of the existing and future indebtedness of said city, providing that such annexed property shall be subject to all laws and ordinances of said city as if all such territory had been a part of the City of Leesburg at the time of passage and approval of said laws and ordinances, providing that such annexed territory shall be placed in City Commission District 3 and providing an effective date.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second, other discussion? Okay, any comments from the public? Okay, roll call.
Commissioner Hurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Dennison?
Yes.
Commissioner Roebuck?
Yes.
Commissioner Christian?
Yes.
Mayor Bone?
Yes. Okay, item 5C.
I'll introduce and ask to be read by title only.
An ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, amending the comprehensive plan future land use map designation of certain property containing 62.8 acres from Lake County rural transition to city estate, being generally located northeast of the intersection of US 27 and Windmill Road, lying in Section 25, Township 20 South, Range 24 East, and providing an effective date.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Any comments from the public? Roll call.
Commissioner Dennison?
Yes.
Commissioner Roebuck?
Yes.
Commissioner Christian?
Yes.
Commissioner Hurley?
Yes.
Mayor Bone.
Yes. Okay, item 5D.
I'll introduce, ask to be read by title only.
An ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, rezoning certain property containing 62.8 acres from Lake County PUD Planned Unit Development to City of Leesburg PUD Planned Unit Development, and being generally located northeast of the intersection of US 27 and Windmill Road, lying in Section 25, Township 20 South, Range 24 East, and providing an effective date.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Any comments from the public? Roll call.
Commissioner Roebuck?
Yes.
Commissioner Christian?
Yes.
Commissioner Hurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Dennison?
Yes.
Mayor Bone.
Yes. Item 5E is a first reading.
I'll introduce and ask to be read by title only, please.
An ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, repealing existing Article 2 of Chapter 4 of the Code of Ordinances pertaining to standards for operators and tenants at Leesburg International Airport, enacting new standards governing the same subject, providing definitions, specifying minimum standards for leases, tenants, engaging in aeronautical activities, aircraft sales and rentals, flight training, commercial flight services, fixed base operators, aircraft maintenance and repair services, charter services, fuel storage and dispensing facilities, city-owned hangars, and management of airport activities, specifying a means of waiving standards where appropriate under this ordinance, repealing all conflicting ordinances, providing a savings clause, and providing an effective date.
Move for approval.
It's
No,
a
no,
first
you're
first
reading.
reading.
I'd like to
Discussion.
thank the Airport Advisory Board for all the work they've done on this minimum standards. It was a lot of work to take on, and they did a great job with this. Thank you. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, so any comments from the public on this evening? All right, it'll go over to the next meeting for our second reading to be voted on. Okay. All right, item 5G.
F.
Oh, 5F, yep.
I'll introduce and ask to be read by title only, please.
An ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, amending the City of Leesburg Municipal Fireman's Retirement Plan by amending Section 1.5, buyback of prior service, by adding paragraphs for the purchase of credited service for prior military service and prior firefighter service as authorized by Florida statutes 175.032, parentheses 6, parentheses C, providing that invalidity of any portion hereof shall not affect the remaining portions of this ordinance, providing for severability and providing an effective date.
Okay, any discussion this evening on this?
I just like the fact that they will be no additional funds required from the city, and we actually may in the long run save some money in that the longer yeared firemen will be able to retire a little bit earlier, and we can bring on the newer at a lower rate.
And
That's
it's
it.
pretty standard.
Yeah.
Where did this come from?
Police Pension Board, the members of the fire department members of the pension board brought this to their attention. The pension board recommends it, and ultimately the commission controls whether it becomes part of the pension plan.
Because I'm just curious why they want to do this. Because I don't buy the idea that retiring early and us paying out more in the long run is good for the city. I know what you're saying about the cheaper people, and if the new employees were on a 401k like they should be, then I'd buy that. But this just grows our defined benefit pension plan, and technically they're supposed to pay for it, but depending on what the rate of return is on the future, that could or could not impact it. They're using the assumptions they have to use, but they're assumptions, which may or may not prove true. So.
But the employee will have to pay the 100% of any years they're buying back from 1 to 5 years. That will not affect the pension. It doesn't add on to that, and I actually think it's a good idea.
But that's based on actuarial calculation at a single point in time, using assumptions.
there's obviously two varying opinions on the commission. As a matter of protocol, I would remind the union that pensionable benefits are negotiated and probably should have started at the CBA level. In this particular case, I agree with Commissioner Roebuck that any modification to the pension plan does ultimately increase your costs. I think Commissioner Dennison brings up a good point that if you do encourage people to retire sooner, then that lowers your costs. Frankly, I think that this is a negligible cost. So I didn't make fuss over where this genesis was. If it was, in my opinion, a significant changer to the plan that I think considerably increases our costs, then I probably would have gone back to the union and reminded them that pensionable benefits are negotiated, and the genesis should not have been the pension board. But because I think it is de minimis and it is a standard benefit, had we negotiated it, I probably would have recommended it to the pension board and to the commission, so I didn't put up that argument. But superficially, I do think anytime you modify the pension plan, you can expect a cost increase. And I think this one would be negligible, and then an actuarial, whoever's going to argue that
Well, there's another benefit factor to it that I want to make sure that we're aware of. I mean, there is a cost, obviously, so Commissioner Roebuck will have some validity to that. But don't forget, one of the things we're always talking about is finding qualified people, not just out of the academy, but with experience. And if you have somebody who has served in the military, for them to be able to get, they only served 4 years or 6 years, but now they can buy that military time back because they served our country, and now that gets to go towards their retirement, which is good. And number two, a lot of times you have a firefighter that's at a department, he's been there for 3 or 4 years, he's done really good and he's excelling, but he don't want to leave that department to go to another department because he don't want to lose those years of service that he put in, be starting all over. So now you can get a guy that's been somewhere 5 years, somebody else, like we've done 100 times, invested a lot of time and money into them. They've got great qualifications and abilities, and now we can bring them over and they don't have to feel like they're starting all over, even though at pay they would be, but they wouldn't be starting all over as far as the time served in their pension. So there's a lot of benefits to it other than just getting a guy out of here. When you start looking at morale and bringing on personnel, those factors kind of, I think, to me, outweigh the little cost that we might incur.
Any other discussion this evening? Anything from the public tonight? Well, this is a first reading, so to come back on the next agenda or vote. Item 5G, first reading again.
I'll introduce and ask to be read by title only, please.
G, H, and I are delayed.
Or they're off.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So if we could just skip through G, H, and I, and we'll do first reading on the 22nd.
Good.
Thank you.
Hold my request for 5J, please.
So which we just moved
5J.
5G and H and I?
Yeah. So
Okay, so we are doing J. Okay. All right, so the next item is 5J.
An ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, amending Section 25-287H, school facilities, to allow educational uses to be located within multi-use structures, repealing conflicting ordinances, providing a savings clause, and providing an effective date.
This is a first reading, so we have any discussion this evening? Anything from the public this evening? So this will come for a second reading and vote next meeting. Item 5K.
I'll introduce, ask for the title.
Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Leesburg, Florida, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute an agreement between Lake County, the Florida Disc Golf Foundation, and the City of Leesburg to plan and build a disc golf course as a part of the Lake County Disc Golf Trail and providing an effective date.
Right.
Move for approval. Second.
Motion is second for approval. Discussion.
Yeah. There was, who was it, somebody at first reading had a question they wanted us to
I believe it was the other sites that we had offered up, and we didn't receive any of that information. As a matter of fact, the presentation that was done during the last meeting was something that was given to us back in October, so there was no change to it at all.
And I asked for financial information also, which
Financial
is not included.
information, that's
And-
I
correct.
followed up.
And if you would, as a staff report, if I can add to this, we recommended in the staff report that the commission not approve this resolution. And that was based on a couple of issues that came up during your discussion. The increased costs, the additional road, moving into a bathroom. So our $20,000 contribution seemingly moved up to somewhere between $60,000 to $100,000. At that level, we, on a staff level, we thought that expense started becoming a little onerous. In addition to that, we also know that the college, Lake Sumter State College, was also participating in the program. So with that, we thought that would be a little bit duplicative as well, to have one facility for us, kind of the southwest side of town, and then for the college to move forward and have a similar facility on the northeast side of town. So we recommended against it. Since we wrote the agenda transmittal, I had a discussion with Travis Rima, our rec director, and Robert Chandler, the economic development director from the county. And I would like to pose that if you do vote against this, an alternative option for you would be to partner with the college and put one course there and share the $20,000 expense. So we split that. So we pay 20, or we pay 10, they pay 10. So that may be an avenue you want to go. I spoke with the representative from the college. I can't remember her name. She's a replacement for Dick Scott. The college board will be considering this in a couple of weeks. So based on what you all decide tonight, I'll report back to the college how they move forward with that. Commissioner Roebuck also was very vocal about getting information on financials from the Florida Disc Golf Association. I tasked Travis with that and was unable to ascertain that information. I do not believe at this stage they are a recognized 501c3. They may be moving towards that, but they are not, and we couldn't find financial information to provide you. So that's our report. Our recommendation is that you do not approve this agreement, and in the course of doing so, you may want to consider a partnership with the college.
What would be the benefit of it?
The benefit of partnering with the college? Benefit of partnering with the college would be that we share the costs. We bring it down to a $10,000 level. The course would then be placed at the college for the public to use.
I mean, the way it stands now, the college one was not going to be open to the public?
I think the college one was. That's, Robert, I know Robert's here, and also a representative from the Disc Golf Federation's here. I'm sure they would like to have some discussion.
Was the college not going to be open to the public?
No, thank you, Commissioners. Robert Chandler, Director of Economic Growth for the county. It will be open to the public. The issue with the Lake Sumter deal is funding as well. So we weren't sure if they were going to be able to find the additional $20,000 because they don't have a parks department, and they've got other funding needs. So one of the ideas was if the Neely property was not going to be a valid option for the city of Leesburg, due to funding, your funding levels were approaching $100,000. The college was going to would potentially have trouble finding the funding for their 20. If we could save one of the two by having the city commit money to the college, that might be a good compromise for the trail and allow us to still get a course in the city of Leesburg, and then have the cost be shared. So it would absolutely be open to the public either way. The question is whether it would move forward without the additional funding.
So where would the college site be located?
Just to the east of their existing building. So if you think where the foundation building is, right behind that in those woods behind the foundation building.
That's their little nature trail they have.
Correct. It would be in that area.
I don't have the 10,000 number doesn't bother me, but I'm not going to vote to give anyone money that's not been vetted. And if we're not a recognized 501c3 and we don't have a 990 that's required by law for them to file, and they've been in existence since 2015, and you're wanting us to, the county, the taxpayers in total write them a check for $40,000, $280,000 across the county. To me, that without being vetted, that's scary.
They've fully been vetted. Ben Champion's here for the foundation if you'd like for him to maybe explain their organizational status.
Please.
Yes, hi. My name is Ben Champion. I'm the director of the Florida Disc Golf Foundation. We are a non-for-profit Florida corporation. We are not currently a 501c3. If it's important that we be a 501c3, there are 3 disc golf 501c3s that we can partner with that obviously have 990 forms and so forth, which we could add. But we are a grassroots organization based here in Lake County, and our mission is to grow the sport of disc golf. But what helps the city of Leesburg is that the city of Leesburg has more hotel rooms in North Lake County than any other city. If the disc golf trail, the whole purpose is to, in addition to providing recreation for residents of the city of Leesburg and the other hosts of the disc golf trail, is to bring tourist dollars to this community. You guys have the hotel rooms. Therefore, I would think that, you have a vested interest in, if the disc golf trail is successful, this $280,000 EDD budget will benefit the city of Leesburg disproportionately, because most of the people will come and stay in your hotel rooms, eat at your restaurants, shop at your places, buy fuel. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Why is the money running through your foundation and not directly to the people providing the service?
Sure. So the concept here is that disc golf course design on this level, we're going to be bidding for the Amateur World Disc Golf Championship tournament with 1,000 players in 2021. We need a certain number of courses to do that, and those courses need to be of high quality for a world competition. So EDT has no expertise in building disc golf courses, nor do any of the host organizations. And so our organization, the role here is for us to assist with design and construction of the disc golf courses, and everything is controlled by contract. There's no wiggle room. We're paid after we do the work. So we're also going to be the organization that will be hosting and organizing these events. But of course, they're open to the public. So if you lost confidence in us, you could use a different organization to do that. Disc golf is one of the fastest growing sports in the country. It's a family-oriented play. The average disc golf player in tournaments is probably around 30 years old or older. The youth are involved also, as well as seniors.
Where are some courses that you've done already?
So our designer is Greg Hosfeld. He's a 3-time world disc golf champion. He's 50-something years old. He has designed some of the best courses in Florida. There's an independent rating service called dgcoursereview.com. Picnic Island is the #1 course in the state. It's over in Tampa. He also designed a course on the Army base over there, or maybe it's the Air Force base, I'm not sure. But he also designed one of the highest rated courses in the Florida, which is in DeBary. He designed the course at Hidden Waters Preserve in Eustis. He designed Turkey Lake T2 course at Bill Frederick Park at Turkey Lake. He's also designed courses in other states as well. He's one of 8 designers in the country that hold the highest level of disc golf course design. I don't know the exact right terminology, but there's an association of disc golf course designers, and he's only one of 8 master course designers granted by that association.
So I guess my question is, because I looked him up and I see his company, he's a for-profit company, World Champion Disc Golf Design. Why are we not contracting with him? Why are we going through you to pay him?
We are contracting with him to design the course and to supervise installation. You certainly could design, you certainly could work directly with him, but...
Are you guys taking a fee, or is it just pure pass-through?
We are not going to make any money. We're not for profit.
But not-for-profits can still take fees and pay salaries and.
Okay, well, we don't pay any salaries. We're dedicated to the growth of the sport. I make a lot of money. I'm a real estate broker and financial advisor in Mount Dora. The other people on the board are professional people that all have jobs. This is our passion. Okay. we want to help. Yeah, sure.
And the other reason, Commissioner, is because we need a long-term partner for this, and Greg's company designs courses. We need a long-term partner on this, and that's what we're doing with any of our capital investments. If we're going to put capital investment into any project, we need to have a partner that can not only get it out of the ground, but that can also be with us along the way to host events, to manage it. If you don't have the private side helping you out on that, we've seen many times where things don't work out. So the foundation has the expertise, they have the connections, they have the relationships in the industry to be able to bring these big tournaments in. So it just made sense for us to partner with them and then ensure that there's no big fees going to them. Everything's passed through. In fact, they're probably going to lose a ton of money because it's going to be a lot of man hours from volunteers for the foundation that are going to be doing a lot of the work. So hopefully that answers your question.
Mr. Chandler.
Yes, sir.
Lake Sumter State College.
Yes, sir.
If their funding falls through, is there any way if we move forward that you can allocate their funding towards our major project?
Well, I certainly can't, but we can make that ask.
Right.
But I don't think that would happen just based on what I've seen from where they're at financially in terms of their priorities, lowering class sizes, things of that nature. So I don't know. It's certainly an ask. I'd be more than willing to make that connection, to set it up, to say, college, are you willing to do that? But I can't make that determination now.
Is the county giving the college any money for their?
Absolutely, it's the same model across the board. So Mount Dora approved theirs last week. Same deal. The TDC is putting in $20,000. The host is responsible for $20,000. Lake Sumter has that exact same deal. TDC will put in 20. They need to put in 20. The question is if they could come up with the 20,000.
So if they don't come up, the 20,000 is allocated for Lake Sumter. Can you redirect that towards Leesburg as well?
At this point, we can't. We can go back to the board, but then we'd also have Eustis and Mount Dora and Claremont saying, well, why don't you give us that money? So
because we're spending $70,000.
Understood. Yeah, no, I get it, and trust me, the model was built so that everybody could spend $40,000 or $20,000 and 20, and we can get this thing done. So when you have to,
those got the most hotel rooms.
Sure.
Right.
Yep. So we still get that.
The other cities, is it working for them because the sites they've picked had restrooms and things like that? Are they
Absolutely. Without question, the city of Leesburg's site was one of the better sites, if not the best site, once everything was built. Unfortunately, you don't have the infrastructure in place currently, and so the additional cost. I mean, the roadway is the biggest issue, I think, out there. The bathrooms aren't a necessity from a disc golf perspective. Now, if that's your policy from parks, we understand that, but from a disc golf perspective, you don't need the bathrooms. There's places where you have nature trails and no bathrooms, so I think that's clear.
We would bring in porta potties for tournaments. We would bring in porta potties for tournaments. So I just want to mention that at the city of DeBary, they have a nature preserve called River City Nature Preserve, and there are two 18-hole disc golf courses there. The first one was installed in 2008. There are no bathrooms, there is no running water. It's a non-paved road and an unpaved parking lot. It's one of the most popular courses in the state, and it's always busy. Again, my job is to tell you from the disc golf perspective what we need. You obviously have to run your parks and listen to your people on what you need from there, but that's from my point of view.
But let me ask one question first, since you are the Frisbee.
Yes, the Frisbee golf.
Why doesn't Venetian Gardens work with the islands?
We love that site. It's not really suitable for more than maybe 9 holes of disc golf because it's not a very large parcel, and safety is a really crucial aspect. We don't want to have the Frisbees thrown near walking trails, and of course there are lots of walking trails and bridges there. So for a safety standpoint, really 9 holes is all that is workable, and we would love to do that if that's what you want to do. We would love to do that. The other thing I would offer is that our first major tournament that we're bidding on so far on the schedule will be in 2021. If there's any way that this could, we could push construction of the Leesburg Trail to the last one built, which means funding wouldn't actually have to come in until 12 to 18 months from now. And then if you have other things you want to do, like roads or whatever your requirements are, those could fall into separate budget years. Any other questions?
Well, how do we end up with bathrooms and roads anyway? That's not a necessity. I don't think bathrooms.
Mr. Mentor, you said you had a suggestion.
Yeah. Couple questions on the table. How do we end up with roads and bathrooms? Our proposal, last meeting, staff proposal back to you was I think 40 grand. And we were suggesting the 20 grand contribution as part of the development of the course, and then another 20 grand to put in a road and parking lot and such. And then your all's discussion escalated that into, well, we want to have the equivalent standards. It's a park, bathroom. So we jumped from county mats, roads to bathrooms. And then at that time frame, y'all instructed us to go back and review this. So that answers your question, I think, Commissioner.
Okay.
With respect to my suggestion on this, we're going to stand by our recommendation at this time, the staff recommendation for you, which is not to approve the Leesburg site. And that's for those given reasons. There's going to be a comparable course potentially built at the college. We're increasing our costs. The Disc Golf Federation represented that we don't have to do those improvements, so we can go back to that level of service if you want. But I do think that the commission has a point with trying to keep all our parks at an equivalent level. However, my suggestion would be that we go ahead and not do this agreement. However, if there is interest in sharing the cost with the college, I would then ask that you instruct me to reach out to the college, and in the course of the next couple weeks, we can work out some details of an agreement, get back with Mr. Chandler, and figure out how we do a joint project with the county where that $20,000 can be split. Perhaps perhaps the city picks up that cost and we just put the site at the college, or which is a little bit more suitable location or so. I think there can be some scenarios in there, but I think that the Neely Road site is not quite workable by our standards. And if we're interested in this, then why don't you direct me to speak with the college?
Well, I think my only hiccup is if you have Mr. Chandler and the Golf Federation here saying that the Neely property is the most ideal of all Lake County for the course, and we don't have to spend that extra $60,000. I don't know why we'd want to go out there and cram it into, because there ain't much space. How big is the one at the college going to be? There ain't much space there. You're talking about the racquetball courts.
It's 18 to 20 acres. It's sufficient space for a course. I mean, that's why it was chosen, because the space is adequate for it. Now, but the terrain isn't as ideal for disc golf. I mean, so, and these are disc golf things, and most of us don't know the differences, but they do. And so it would be one of the better sites on the trail. There's no question about that. But at the end of the day, we'd rather have one in Leesburg than none. So really,
I'll say I went out to the Neely Road site to check it out, and it's a beautiful piece of property.
Yeah.
To do that, I think that there are two options, and one is to spend the money and make it look like a Leesburg park, like we do, or it's to not spend the money and keep it locked up. Because if you leave it the way it is now and leave it open as a city park, it's not suitable at all. I mean, we're talking about like the middle of the woods. It's not even really much of a dirt road. There's some millings kind of on the road.
Commissioner Robert, what do you think of that property as a future park itself? As take out the disc golf right now for a second, but just its potential as a park.
It could be a nice park. I mean, I was a little disappointed that there's not better access from Stock subdivision. I mean, the Neely Road, you don't drive to the landfill to get there, so you kind of have to go off the El Rancho Road, which kind of pulls you out of that one particular area. But it's a beautiful piece of property. I'd hate to see something not done with it. But I also question just doing it bare bones and having these woods kind of open for any
I don't know
time.
if ideally you want a park use if you're doing this, do you? I mean, you don't play baseball in a park, you don't play
No,
golf in a
you
park.
certainly wouldn't want an active park, and that's why Susan Street and Sleepy Hollow were not, but a passive park, maybe with a playground and a pavilion and some walking trails that don't interfere. Those two. Prime example would be Hiawatha Preserve down in Claremont. I think that's a very similar type of landscape, and they've managed to put in a playground and walking trails, and then they're doing a disc golf course as well. So it's possible to combine.
I'm not opposed. I mentioned that in the last meeting to utilizing that piece of property as a park. I mean, there's nothing over in that corner of Leesburg, amenity-wise, and so I'm not opposed to making an investment over that way. And
Our conversation's kind of circuitous because it brings you
Right.
back to our original staff recommendation, which is you need to do 20 grand for the match, and it needs road access. If you're going to use that property, you need to come off El Rancho, and we estimated it's going to be about 20 grand to build the road.
And I do question the access and how many people are going to benefit, because from Stock, it's easier for you to get to Venetian Gardens than it is to there, unless you walk through our landfill.
to go in on the,
Because you got to go back out to, to South Street and go all the way down and weave through this neighborhood. And how many people are going to know it's there?
Come down off of Newton, don't you?
No. No, you can't come off. To go through Neely, you have to drive all the way through our
Through the
landfill.
landfill?
Yeah, which
You have to go through the landfill, through the fire department thing, up the hill, down the hill, and
So
back.
you came off of Lewis.
I came off
South
Neely,
end.
but we couldn't have it as a park entrance, I don't think. I mean, that would be a stretch. Not sure what good side of Leesburg.
I think you've approached this with something that, brings in this piece of property as you see it. I think it opens up discussions to bigger pictures in the city than just the disc golf. But,
I mean, DeBerry is not a very big city, and the disc golf facility there is in constant use. Now, it's been there a while. It took a couple years for, the word to get out, but it is just constantly in use. And I think this disc golf is a great sport. Get people out, stop playing video games, get out in the woods, and the fact that it is woods and not a manicured park, I think it's a plus, Maybe you could have a different category to call it other than active park or.
I'm okay with moving forward on the 10 grand to help the college out and keeping open a discussion of what happens to this park, but I'm not yet
Would we
ready
be
to
pulled in
money.
if we give the 10,000 to the college and they do vote to do it? What about yearly maintenance? What about any other things that the city's going to get hit with as far as expenses?
Yeah, I think you just direct me to say, hey, you direct me to go to the college and work out a deal whereby we'll give 10 grand and the college takes care of it and keeps it open to the public. I mean,
That-
that's-
well, it'd have
that
to
would
be
be the
in writing to be open to the
parameters.
public.
Yeah, I mean, that's the parameters that we work out with the college. So it could be a deal where the college just moves forward completely, signs off on the county deal, but then we have a side deal with the college.
Well, Mr. Mayor, you got a motion on the floor to accept the, what the motion was, accept?
The
Yeah,
motion
the
was
actual was to approve it,
Yeah.
To approve it?
So I think Mr. Commissioner Christian's getting to, any other discussion we have on it or at the moment, or we ought to, so we don't take, any comments from the public, or?
I would definitely go
come-
with it. Disc golf is,
If you don't mind, just, if you can come up and state your name and.
okay, yeah.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Katrina, and I would be actually for disc golf because I came from, their father is, he's pretty good at it. And I tried it, it's amazing, it's fun, and I think it should be put in as much, even if it's rural, it doesn't matter. It is better not to have people, because you got a huge, disc flying, so I'm all about it.
Now, where do you live? And you're in Leesburg or?
Oklahoma.
In Oklahoma, okay. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. My name is Mike Perry. I'm the executive director with Lake County Water Authority. We own property that abuts, I think, the Neely Drive site. And based on the diagram that we've seen, it looks like some of the holes are bleeding over into our Flat Island property. And we would respectfully ask that if you do consider to move forward with the Neely Drive site at all, that you do not put any disc golf activities on our property without coming to talk to the Water Authority Board first.
Which one is, okay, I see the Water Authority there.
And I will say the Neely Drive also, it looked like it had just been mowed, like bush hog or something. It's going to need ongoing maintenance, or you're gonna
lose it.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be not passable.
Yes, sir.
My name's Chad Cook. I live in Oklahoma, and the kids in Leesburg, I grew up as a kid in Leesburg, and there's not a lot to do at all. Disc golf could greatly benefit Leesburg and our youth and give them something to do, get them out of the house, stop playing video games, and honestly bring an identity to Leesburg that we need. So that's my opinion.
Thank you.
The youth need it. They really need it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am. Hey there. How you doing?
Hi, I'm Mary Megan. I live in Leesburg. I also grew up in Leesburg my whole life. There's not a lot to do. I agree. To keep all the kids out of trouble, I've heard about what happened at Leesburg High School. They could redirect their attention. There's a lot of scholarships for golf right now for young women, and this is just another form of golf. and the Leesburg actually cut the funding for the golf program back when I was in high school in 2012, and I didn't get to pursue my scholarship opportunities. And I feel like if they bring that here, that could really help. And with the villages moving into the back door, it's just another form of golf that I think people would enjoy. So.
Thank you. Right, any other comments from the public?
I'd like to make an amendment. I'd like to make a motion to approve the deal with the Florida Disc Golf Association on the Neely Street property without the improvements of a road and bathroom at this time.
Motion to amend the motion to approve.
Essentially, that's the motion on the floor.
Is the motion, but does the motion?
The motion, I believe the motion on the floor approves the agreement with Lake County, which is the 20 grand. So basically, if you just approve that and you instruct us not to worry about the road or the bathrooms, that's what the motion on the floor is.
Okay. Then I'll retract that.
Let me ask, so,
Fred,
you know,
you have
a couple things I've heard, you know, I have a question about is now we're, you know, saying that if we put a disc golf thing out there, then is that going to get in the way of us doing something else out there because we're afraid of frisbees flying around, or is it?
Well, I think the key is just coordinating the uses, and again, that's what they've done at Lake Hiawatha. So they have a pretty established nature trail system down there. Currently, they have a temporary disc golf course that the Disc Golf Foundation put in for them, and they were able to move the courses around in the layout so that they don't interfere. That's a problem across the entire landscape of disc golf, is how do you coexist with your surroundings. So they're used to making things fit, and they could easily make that happen.
So here's my thinking on it, and if we have a standard that says we have to have the road there, we have to have a bathroom, and I would prefer to have a bathroom at city parks, but if we've got this park that right now would just be used as disc golf and nothing else, then you at least have something happening out there, and if our contribution is just to the $20,000, and we don't, I see Travis is shaking his head no, so.
Travis Armour, Director of Recreation. The road would be a necessity. Working with Public Works, coming off El Rancho, there has to be some engineering and design done. So the road and a fence that blocks the disc golf area from the Public Works and Fire Department training area, those would be the infrastructure things that would be a necessity to be out there. The bathroom would be the one that would be if we wanted it or not to have it.
How much are the road improvements we have? We estimate for road improvements.
24,000, another 14 for fencing. I mean, you got another 2,000 for permitting. And I think, and I'll say the other thing is, because I don't think this is about the money. I mean, we have the money to spend 100 grand if we want to spend 100 grand on a park. But if we're going to spend that much, I'd rather see if it works, and we can give the college 10, see if it works, and if so, we lose the county's 20, but we're not talking about until 2021 anyways. We can, next year, we can go spend the money and put it in a park. I just think it's a lot of money to throw out for a park that just kind of middle of nowhere, not really ideal.
And I think for me, looking at the funding sources, the $30,000 from the recreation impact fee, which can only be used for new improvements. So I don't want to be the last one to come back, and I was just thinking, it's like deja vu with the volleyball. Everybody says, "Oh, we lost the volleyball." But this is where we were. We had an outside agency trying to explain to the city council why this would work. The county came in the last minute and said, "Hey, you guys may want to push it off." So this is where we were. The city staff weren't even as vocal as Travis was. It was the USA Volleyball trying to sell the city council on beach volleyball, with, of course, a lot of residents kind of pro and against. So it's almost, for me, it's like deja vu. We got an independent source telling us this is great, it's going to work, and spend some money. And so here we are, for me, once again, and staff is, and I think staff is kind of saying, They wants to do it, kind of from our standpoint. He's saying no at this point, but I don't have a major problem spending the funds because I think it'll be another park in the city of Leesburg. So if this golf doesn't work, we then have an actual road and we can then improve. I'm not particular for the bathrooms at this point because I can remember several parks who just got bathrooms have been operating for years. So I think for me that's the wait and see approach. If it does, great, build a bathroom. If it doesn't, now you can now look for additional grant funding to build a nice playground and you have a park that's already there. You know, I don't want to push to 2021 and say we can do something in because, you know, I may not be on the commission and don't want to make another commission make that decision, but I think it is very much needed. Close enough to Stock subdivision so the kids may have to walk down South Street to get to it, but I think we build something nice enough that they didn't have a choice. So I was in Played Again Sports and I asked about disc golf. I saw the basket and I was asking, you know, is this popular? And the guy Played Again Sports said it's becoming a very popular sport. So I'm for moving forward with the road and doing the disc golf at Neely. You know, of course, giving the college $10,000, but we have no control, no say-so, and Leesburg residents have just that much further to go to interact with the disc golf. So my vote is to move forward with the original proposal, which was to build a road and start disc golf here in Leesburg, not be the last game in town.
Just for clarification, because I think Mr. Hurley's recommendation or motion was trying to strike some of this. So just to review the motion on the floor, the way the transmittal is written. The transmittal is written under the financial impact statement so that you build the disc golf course with the $20,000 match, $24,000 for a road, $14,000 for a fence, $2,000 for DEP permitting, and $40,000 for a restroom. So if you approve the motion on the floor, you've committed to spending $100,000, funded $30,000 from recreational impact fees, and $70,000 from the general fund. So that's the motion on the floor. If you want to amend that so you strike some of these expenses, now would be the time to make an amendment to that motion. So what's on the floor is the whole enchilada.
All right, which tab is the?
Go to page
5K.
5K.
It's on the financial impact.
Okay.
under the financial.
Just
No,
Go
to
next
the
one up.
Next one up. All right,
This.
there we go. Okay, got it.
and then
Okay.
go down.
All right, I got
It's
it.
on next page,
There
right
we
here.
go.
Oh, one
Got
too
it.
far.
Got it.
Right,
Okay.
it's this fund. That statement that's
All right.
what how we prepped that was $100,000 expense is how the resolution's written.
So Commissioner Christian is saying take out the $40,000,
That would be my amendment to the motion.
and that would take it from 100,000 to 60,000 then.
And I'll second the motion.
And we probably need to specify where we want that to come, whether it's from the recreation impact fees or the general fund reserves.
I would say use as much as recreation impact fee as possible.
Okay, so
Can I ask another question on the design build, the 20,000? How much of that is what is the design build for the 20 there? Is that
That's our grant. The county's
oh, that's
kicking
theirs.
in. That's
Okay,
the
yeah, that's their
county
part.
match.
Okay, all right. All right, we have a motion and second to amend the original motion to take out the $40,000 bathroom. Any other discussion? Any other comments from the public? Roll call.
Commissioner Hurley,
Yes.
Commissioner Dennison,
No, I am opposed to this.
Commissioner Roebuck,
yes on the amendment.
Commissioner Christian,
Yes.
Mayor Bone.
Yes. Okay, so now we have an amended motion to approve doing the contract with the county and without the bathroom.
So you have a $60,000
$60,000 commitment.
expense.
Yeah.
30 of that will come from rec impacts. 30 of that will come from the general fund.
And that's just for the first year.
Do we have an estimate from staff on ongoing maintenance costs, mowing?
We'll be cutting
know
the
what-
grass.
Yeah.
Do you have to hire anybody else, Travis, or you can do
No,
it?
we'll cut-
Travis can do
we'll-
it.
Travis ain't gonna be doing it. DC's gonna be doing it.
It's DC. I'll I'll get the grass cut.
Travis needs something to do the weekend, man. He want this, so Travis cut the
I'll
grass.
get the grass cut.
Well, I mean, we're talking about grass, and we're going to spend. You know, we have all this excitement about spending $3, $4, $5 million on a swimming pool for 58 kids a day to go play, and here we're going to haggle over $100 a month to mow some grass for 50 people to go play golf. Come on, guys. I mean, jeez.
I'll get the grass cut. Commissioner Hurley's hit it right on the head.
And I think that, you know, I think making a park over there, I mean, I think Stock Subdivision is, you know, needs some, be shown some love. And
That's your area we're trying to improve.
I know,
Louise.
but they need sidewalks more than they need a golf disc park.
well, let's talk about sidewalks.
We'll get you a golf.
Yeah, I mean, it's a stretch to say you can walk there from Stock
Yeah,
Subdivision.
you
That is
can.
a long walk.
It's
Well,
dangerous.
It's faster to walk to Venetian Gardens than it is to walk from Stock Subdivision to here. I mean, it's a long walk. I was surprised when I
Let's
was there.
pass this
But
for
it's
the
also
drivers.
okay, and it's also a nice piece of property. And Commissioner Roebuck, I appreciate your comment that it could make a nice park at some point, and that this gets a start to that, small start.
Absolutely.
Right, roll call.
Commissioner Dennison,
No.
Commissioner Roebuck,
No.
Commissioner Christian,
Yes.
Commissioner Hurley,
Yes.
Mayor Bone.
Yes.
Hey, Robert, let's go get the building, man. I'm gonna get that
Travis,
other
when does the
20,000.
first disc golf league start?
Thank you, Commissioners.
All right,
We'll make you proud.
Okay, thank you. Okay. All right, item 5L. You want to break a minute?
Can we?
Yes, can we take a break, just a 5-minute break? So, a second.
Hey, Chief is here.
Oh, okay.
We got Chief here to go back to that.
Okay.
Come on, Chief. That's a robot question.
We're going to take a break.
Okay.
Chief. Okay, we're going to call the meeting back to order, and we're going to go back to item 4C3. All right. So again, this is the resolution of the commission to enter into the agreement, 9/11 agreement.
Yes.
And we had a question for Mr. Roebuck, so I don't know if you.
So my question is, when the county outsourced to, or the county let all the other cities outsource their dispatch to the county, and it saved them a lot of money every year, and they asked us to keep doing our own and to serve as the backup for the county, which is what this is about, right? We're serving as backup.
Chief Hicks, Leesburg Police Department. No, they didn't ask us to keep our own. We did not want to go over that. We're one of, I think there's 4 others in the city that, or in the county that are not dispatched by the
So
sheriff's
why
office.
don't we want to let them just dispatch and save the money?
That's a very long-winded response. That doesn't have anything to do with this PSAP agreement. This agreement is just saying that when they house stuff in our facility or when we house stuff in their facility, the facility we have to make sure is going to be safe and that their equipment's not going to get ruined or anything like that.
Okay. So for budget, you can give me the long not tonight, but for as we
Correct.
do budget, the long explanation
Yes.
of why. Okay.
Absolutely,
We can
sir.
even do it not here, so everyone else doesn't have to listen.
Y'all should meet. Y'all should have lunch and talk about it.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So we I think we did have a motion for approval of this. So any other discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner Christian,
Yes.
Commissioner Hurley,
Yes.
Commissioner Dennison,
Yes.
Commissioner Roebuck,
Yes.
Mayor Bone.
Yes. All right. Okay, item 5L.
Introduced has to be read by title only.
Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Leesburg, Florida, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute a land sale agreement with the village's land company and providing an effective date.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Now we have Mr. Minter's presentation. We'll start with that.
Members of the commission and the public, appreciate the opportunity to talk about the opportunity growth for the city of Leesburg, which is a shift in, I should say a galactic shift in what we've been trying to do for the last 10, 15 years. And instead of an industrial-based type growth mechanism for the city, there's opportunity for the city to grow in a more residential, commercial factor with a partnership with the villages. So tonight, we are recommending that the commission sell the 470 property to the villages. The sale includes the sale of essentially all of the 470 property, less some private ownerships and the sewer plant on the south side. It's actually a total sale of 1,938.48 acres. The sale would gross $11.98 million. The sales contract is written in two parts to match the two types of parcels that the villages would purchase. The first purchase is the lion's share of the property, which we dub Exhibit A. On this map, it's delineated obviously in the yellow. This area here represents the turnpike, and then 470 does the little S curve through this property. Exhibit A actually has three portions in the legal descriptions, which are in your packet. It's Exhibit 1A, which is what we're calling the Northlands. It's Exhibit 1A2, which is the south area, and then it's Exhibit 3, which we call the I. Those yellow areas are the developable property. The offer that we have on the table is $7,000 an acre. That totals the 1,684.4 acres at $7,000 an acre, which totals just under 11.8 million. The second portion of the sale contemplates sale of non-developable wetlands, passive areas, can be used for passive and recreation and these type of things, but it can't be developed per se. There's 254 acres of that type of property. The agreement dubs it Exhibit B. It's $500 an acre is the offer. So obviously this number plus this number equals that number, and this number plus that number equals that number. So that is the question before you. In moving forward, I've tried to summarize this in this PowerPoint presentation as briefly, as succinctly as possible. The sale agreement contemplates the sale of this property, but then provides 9 months due diligence period to go over a number of items. I think it very succinctly said this is a very complicated sale purchase, and it has a number of moving parts, and each party, the city and the villages, has requested this period so that we can review a number of issues. Some of those issues, which I think are the most important, I've enumerated here for you this evening. One is the first thing the city has to do is repayment of the property. Jack, if you go back a second. Of the Uplands property right now, about 600 acres in this area was granted to the city by the EPA. The covenants in that EPA grant gave that property to us, and it essentially says we can have and hold forever as long as we use it for effluent disposal. It does allow us to sell the property. However, if we sell the property, we have to return 70% of the marketable value back to EPA. So having said that, the first order of business that the city has to do is ensure that those numbers are correct and ensure that that transfer of property can occur. I've dubbed that the repayment to EPA. I've estimated that 75% of market value is $5,250, so we're looking at somewhere of a repayment to EPA of $3.1 million, which would net the city about $8.7 million in this transaction. We also need to talk about transfer of protected lands. That was the blue area that was on the previous map. FCT has granted and has covenants of this area. We've talked about taking out the I, so to speak, at a higher value, but we have to do some mitigation for that. We also have to make sure that we live up to the covenants, and the villages and the city has to talk about who does some improvements and how we access the I and how we access the restricted area. So that's what I mean by transfer of of protected lands. Those discussions have happened on a cursory level with FCT, as well as the discussions with EPA on a cursory level, but part of the due diligence process goes back and examines that. We also have a number of water and sewer issues to describe. Who provides water, what franchise fees, where we'll get the water from, how it affects our CUP, how it may affect Village's CUP. We also have to work over 2 water management districts with St. John's and Swift Muds, and we have to figure out and unweave that web. So we have some work to do there. We also have, not to belabor the point, but we also have reclaimed issues that we need to look at, and how we funnel through existing reclaimed water usage for us, where reclaimed water usage will work for the villages. The heartbeat of this whole deal is wrapped into how the city efficiently disposes of its effluent so that we can open up that property for development. And I'll speak more on that in a moment. But that is a key element that does need some discussion and figuring out that ultimately we put in this developers agreement. We also, an important aspect of the plan is that the villages would like the city to consider the village's model of land development regulation, which would be embedded in our land development codes. This is similar to what they're discussing in Wildwood currently, and this is very similar to what Fruitland Park has done, where the village has expanded into those municipal areas. We also need to talk about utility and franchise fees. Those will cover 3 or 4 different areas. Electric, obviously, is the first one. This is not the city of Leesburg's electric territory. It's Duke's territory. Under our franchise agreement with Duke, anything that is developed there, that would be a 6% franchise fee to the city. I think we probably need to have some discussions with the villages on that issue. However, I don't see that as a village issue. That is a Duke city issue, and essentially anything that develops there is a Duke territory, and the city is entitled to a 6% franchise fee on electric sales there. But we do have to talk about water franchise fees, sewer franchise fees, solid waste franchise fees, gas franchise fees, and all those discussions have started to occur on a very cursory level. Along with the franchise fees, I don't have it written here though, is also to protect our ability to tax those municipal services. So that needs to be discussed. I spoke a little bit about effluent and field decommissions under the reclaim services. We also have some general service issues to talk about: police, fire, roads, parks. Again, we've had cursory discussions on those things, but haven't ironed everything out. And the bulk water and wastewater issues on how we treat wastewater is a significant issue. Tonight, I am asking the commission to approve this concept. However, to follow is this due diligence period. If any of these issues in this due diligence period do not work, then I believe that that is grounds for either the villages to back out of the deal or the city to back out of the deal. And so before you move to closing, there will be, I think, significant public discussion and an agreement that comes back to the city commission that you would approve and that the village's management would approve, that it would be part and parcel to this agreement, which would lead us into closing. In English, what I said was, this deal ain't getting done until you all approve a developer's agreement to your satisfaction and the village's satisfaction. If that doesn't occur, we do not move to closing. We would anticipate that we would get there 9 months or maybe sooner. Obviously, this evening I'm very strongly recommending this, and I want to briefly digress into why there's this recommendation. And it's really very simple, I think. This recommendation to do this agreement and sale with the villages is based on 2 things: growth, and growth is the root of how a community improves and move forward, and frankly, the lack of growth in Leesburg. And then growth always triggers financial a financial analysis, and how those funds can then improve the city of Leesburg and help us on our mission to live, work, and play and make Leesburg an even better community. So let me go to the growth issue. Leesburg for a long time, before you switch to that slide, Leesburg for a long time, in my opinion, has been pinched between 2 growing monsters. 1, Orlando to the southeast, and 2, the villages to the northwest. For whatever reason, the city of Leesburg has missed out on significant growth. Growth is key to everything, and at our current growth rate, I do not think that that is a healthy growth rate to continue some of the current goals that we've had. We've been able to talk about things like Venetian Gardens improvements, some corridor improvements, and I feel very comfortable that we can accomplish those things in a sustainable manner. However, at the current growth rates that we've experienced, I think we then push our limits to take the next step in developing Leesburg. To that regard, Leesburg came up with a plan a long time ago, 10, 15, 2000 timeframe. And at that time, the city went out and we annexed significant amounts of property south of town, Secret Promise. Secret Promise and the hope that that residential development would come was actually the spawn of creating the Okahumpka Fire Station in preparation for growth that would come from the boom timeframe era. We also had our own 470 property where we hope to invest and bring on industrial development. And then not only would we have residential, but we'd also have industrial development. But since that time frame, 17 years has passed, and I think it's important to relate growth back to the number of single-family residential units that have been issued. So I put together this quick chart which kind of demonstrates where our growth levels have been. And so I shift around a little bit here, and I group together the data just to make it easy. But in 2003, the city of Leesburg issued, now this is Leesburg proper, okay? Leesburg proper. Obviously, there's been other developments around Leesburg in our MSA, but Leesburg proper data is in 2003, 265 single-family residential starts occurred. From 2005 to 2008, and those dates are specific because that's about the heartbeat of the bubble, maybe even leaking back in there to 2000. By the way, this brings you to 2005. In the bubble, 1,200 units. 1,200 units is what we issued during the bubble. From 2008, after the bubble to present, 828. The lion's share of that has come here more recently. So you have a total number of units that were issued of about 2,300 over 13 years. That's an average of 176 units a year. Now let's convert this number roughly into people. Say 2.5 persons per single family resident would mean this times 2.5 is 441. Divide that by our growth. This was in 2000 from the census, our population was 16,502 people. If you carry this over for the next 15 years, that gets you up to about 22,000. So the numbers work out. Do the math, that's 2.67% growth. So that's, in my opinion, an alarmingly low number. We always talk that we want 3% growth as a sustainable number. But realistically, that's extremely low. That's what Leesburg did during the boom time period when Florida was growing at 25, 30, 40, and 50%. I think it's relatively fair to say that Leesburg has not grown, and our growth rate will not sustain the goals that we have in mind. So how do we get there? We created the industrial and development approach, and that approach has been slow to work. And I don't think that's for lack of effort. So let's talk now first, before we get into where we've been, to what the village's proposal can do. Jack, if you hit the slide. I put together a proposal. Now, mind you, I've dubbed this village's model versus the industrial growth model. My rough estimation in summary is that by going with the village's model at full build out, the city can see an expansion of their base, not taxable base, but their base of about $900 million before homestead exemption. I think right now, Jim, our taxable base is 1.2 billion. So our total taxable base is 1.2 billion. So this village's potential has almost the ability to double our taxable base. We bring in right now about $4.5 million in ad valorem revenue. We'll get to the numbers here in a second. But first, I do need to caveat these, because I think what you have to do in this comparison is you have to make some assumptions. These things may or may not occur, but I think they're reasonable, conservative assumptions so that we can educate ourselves and educate the public on the choices that are being presented this evening. So with reasonable assumptions, we lay out some data analysis points. If we sell the city's 470 property, I've estimated that you can generate about 4,500 single-family residential homes. That number comes from the Villages model. The Villages model, with roads, parks, golf course, commercial amenities, everything included, the Villages model is 2.68 units plus everything included. So 4,500 is a rounded number, so when you take the 1645 times 2.68, you come up with about 4,500 units. Home value is the next item. Roughly, I think it's fair to say that an average value of the Villages is about $200,000 per home. Less homestead exemption, you come up with a taxable value now of $675 million. Now that says $675,000, so let me just explain. Your formula for taxing is your base tax less homestead exemption divided by 1,000 times 95% times your millage rate. So what this number is here is that formula times the millage rate. So 4,500 new houses at $200,000 in value will generate $2.7 million of potential ad valorem revenue. There's also an inverse there with some commercial property. So I took a wag at that based on our mix, our current mix, about 75, 25. So I threw in a couple of dollars for some commercial taxes. Depending on where service levels go, if we are or aren't a service provider, other communities that are negotiating with the Villagers are wanting a pilot. I've requested a pilot. None of this is in stone yet, but if we have a pilot for different services, there's taxable income on utilities that would be a for-profit utility, which would entitle us to tax revenue. So I've tried to throw that into equation. I was hesitant to put this number in because our conversations with the Villages have not yielded this number, so I've made some big assumptions. I have made no caveats or capitulations that this is where we would go during a development agreement with the Villages. But I assume worst case scenario for the city based on other circumstances. So having said that, I fear that I've yielded my hand a little bit, but by no means have I made any capitulations to the Villages that this is where we would go. The Villages has very vocally said that they want to do the fire and emergency services. Frankly, I think that that is a good deal for the city. They're going to want reimbursement for that, so that's where our fire assessment fee comes in. In short, I assume that we would maybe, let me say that again, would maybe have a loss leader on that. I hope that that's not the case during the negotiations, but I wanted to assume a worst case scenario. So perhaps we have a loss leader on fire assessments on a commercial level and again, a residential level. Our fire fee right now is $58. My hope is to go into negotiation and work out a deal where the Villages provides us fire and emergency services in the Villages sector of Leesburg for $58 per unit. If that happens, then this is a wash and this number grows. So that's where we'll try to go. And then I'll speed this up. Then based on what we see as typical single-family residential units, it's for water, sewer, irrigation, electric, solid waste, and gas usage. These are our typical consumptions, and then we multiply these over 12 months times the number of units times our impact fee numbers, or not impact fees, but our either franchise fee numbers or our utility tax numbers, and you come up with a potential growth of $4.5 million. I'm very hopeful that at full bill out, that would be a low number. Try to be as conservative as possible. So in short, the Village's potential, I think, has the potential, and I'm very guarded with my words, has the potential to be a significant windfall and a huge growth opportunity for the city of Leesburg. That money then becomes able to help us provide some of the services the villages of Leesburg would need in terms of long-term road maintenance, additional police officers that may be needed in that portion of town, different things for maintenance, but also would then return us the ability to reinvest in other parts of Leesburg. Having said that, to try to convince the community and the commission to shift gears, I think we have to look at where we've been. And where we've been has been the industrial segment, where we have tried to market the property of the 470 property industrially. In my opinion, we have not done that more in the last 2.5 years since the commission wanted to create the economic developer position and I hired Mike Rankin. I think for the past 2.5 years, Mike has done an outstanding job in terms of marketing Leesburg, working with the county, working through Metro EDC, working on leads, and we have significant tire kicks to this day. Now, one of the things that we did get into here recently is how do we move forward while we were working with the villages and Mike was still working on other leads that are still out there. The game plan was that we were going to continue to work on these leads up until the time that a contract was brought before the commission that enabled us really not to be able to work on those leads. So it is my opinion that we've continued that economic development game to its fullest. And towards that regard, I can stand before you this evening, probably with Mike's help, and rattle off about 10 potential customers or projects that we have on the board, from Project Chill to a boat company to a manufacturer of electric components to a tower manufacturer to the core slab agreement that you did, and to some segments of property that we still cut out of the 470 property to do economic development. But tonight that would change. If you move forward with this agreement this evening, our concept at 470 does change. Now, perhaps in the future and during the due diligence period, we talk about how we shift those efforts to a different part of the community, or perhaps we even use some of those proceeds so that we can stay in the industrial portion of the game. But however, it's my opinion that we have worked steadfast on these projects. Having said that, we have to now compare the full build out of what it looks like of the village's growth model to the industrial model to figure out what is the best win for Leesburg. So with that, I added this column. This column represents how we would grow industrially. As we stated, there's about 1,900 acres of property that is up for sale. If we move in the industrial expansion way, only 500 acres are really available for industrial property because we have to spray our effluent. What the villages does for us, which is a key component of this deal, is because of their size, because of the retention ponds they have, because of their need for reuse water to grow and get CUP, consumptive use permits, they have to take reuse, and reuse is an important component for them. So part of this deal is we give up our reuse to them. They house it in a different location that's away, or potentially retention ponds that would be part of their segment. But remember, 2.68 includes areas for retention. That's their total all-in number. So that's, a rough house figure. So the 470 property is not going to turn into a giant retention pond so the villages can grow in Sumter County, okay? So what happens is we shift our ability to put our effluent somewhere else. That opens up the 1,600 acres. If we go to the existing plan, we still have to put our effluent somewhere because now we can't partner with the villages, and there's no benefit for the villages to partner with us to take our effluent so that we can grow more industrially, because that doesn't benefit the villages. So therefore, if you go with the plan, you have to look at it that you only have expansion for 500 acres. And then hope the growth comes, residential growth comes in other places like Secret Promise, which goes back to our original concept in the 2000s. Long story short, this was a difficult number to guess at, and it is a guess. Mike and I sat down and we worked out what we thought what a deal was. And here's how we came up with this $200 million number. Based on the experience and based on the tire kicking that we've seen, we think that each parcel has about 10 or 15 acre deal out of the 500. So that gives us about 15 companies with an average investment of about $10 million. That equals the $20 million taxable value. Now you hit that with your tax rate, and you see the 2.7 to 800. And so you go from about 2.7 to $1 million. However, I asterisk that. In the industrial game plan, I am a huge advocate and will continue to be a huge advocate for property tax abatement credits for industrial expansion. The nation, that's the game. That is how companies look. They expect this entitlement, whether it's entitlement or not. But if you do not have a tax abatement plan in place, I think you put yourself at a disadvantage. To that extent, the county has even now moved to try to put together an semblance of a tax abatement program, and they've done so here recently with their tax abatement grant program, which works the same. So that component is critical to be able to lure companies. However, when luring industrial companies versus residential commercial companies, residential and commercial development doesn't have the expectation of property tax abatement. Industrial properties do. So therefore for us to leverage industrial property, this number is tax abated. So you won't see that. Potentially, you bring in your company, and depending on the tax abatement deal that you work out with them, you won't see tax revenue for 5 to potentially 10 years. State statutes allows you to eliminate up to 95% of property taxes for a company for up to 10 years. So basically, there's the potential that up for 10 years, you don't see property tax revenue. So the long story short, when compared to the village model versus growth, industrial model versus growth, the numbers is double. So when you're in the game of improving tax base, creating jobs, the service economy, which is the village model, in my opinion, is more than equivalent to the industrial growth. Having said that, that's the foundation for why I would recommend we shift gears, we sell the property to the villages. Having said that, there's always other considerations. Very easily, we have to go into a due diligence period of 9 months. So pending approval of this sales agreement, if it's approved by you this evening, tomorrow we receive a check from the villages in the amount of $100,000, which is earnest money, which is deposited in escrow. As you noted, the villages has already signed the agreement, which is before you. There's also risk involved. We're not guaranteed that growth will occur. What I think is good is that in partnering with the villages, we're partnering with what I would call a local company with a proven track record. For the very most part, the villages does what they say they're going to do, and they do it to a first degree, first class reputation. Having said that, they would anticipate growth to occur in 5 to 7 years in the 470 area. The 470 area is contiguous to some of their current plans for expansion in the Wildwood area. Having said that, however, there is a caveat in the agreement that if development doesn't occur, the city does have the right of first refusal to buy the property back at the existing price, or the price that was paid, in 12 years. And that lien is put on the property so that the villages can't sell that. So we encumber the property with a note that says that it can't be sold until that is satisfied. But we capitulate that at the end of 12 years, should development occur, we release the villages from that. They've agreed to that. And then finally, there are a number of issues we still need to discuss. I'm very hopeful that we will pound out those issues and get to this closing within 9 months. And I feel very confident that the issues that we've cursorily discussed with the villages is very comparable to what the villages has done with other communities in Wildwood and Fruitland Park. So that's my presentation for you this evening. I think it is a hugely significant change in our plans. I think it has the potential to reward the city greatly in growth and tax-based growth, which will help us get to the next level. And we have, from now moving forward, about 9 months to iron out the details before we move to closing.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
I have two questions, Mr. Minner. First of all, and this is going to be asked from now on, do we have enough water to provide out there for potable water? Or is that going to become an issue?
Water is a consideration that we need to talk about. And so briefly, this is where we've left the water discussion. And I think there's two avenues for water consumption to be brought to the 470 Villages region. One is the Villages brings the water, or two, the city of Leesburg brings the water. Right now, our CUP is written such that we have about 1.5 million gallons a day, MGD, of available capacity. Based on our existing CUP, that number will grow to about 2 million MGD by 2020. Based on where growth is, will vary from a potential consumption level of an irrigated house versus a non-irrigated house. Roughly, if you build non-irrigated houses, we have about 6,500 potential units you can build.
Okay.
If you build irrigated houses, meaning using your reuse, we have about 15,000 houses that you can build. The Villages model right now is they have on the books about 1,500 units that they want to build before they get to us. Hopefully we're 1,501. At that time frame, either A, they would use our water, or B, they would use what's left of our water, because we may have some growth time between now and then, and that's something that we have to discuss as part of the developers agreement. We don't want to sit here and restrict our water consumption before they come, but we want to reserve some. So they're going to have an expectation that they may want some, but they also know that we have an infrastructure problem in getting water to the south side of town. Our waters and wells are on the north side of town. To get it to the south side of town, we estimate about a $10 million expense to increase the size of our pipes. If we were doing that development, we would have impact fees that would cover that cost. I've told the Villages on a very cursory level, one, if you want our CUP, you're going to have to pay that cost, or B, you're going to have to bring your water.
Okay.
So that's something that we have to discuss. Is there enough water? I think yes is the answer. How we get it there, we need to discuss over the next several weeks.
Okay. I don't want to see us shorting the proper city of Leesburg.
Water is a very complicated, in my opinion, three-legged stool. And we've touched on this on a very high level. But water goes into consumption, reuse, and wastewater. And we're permitted in 3 different capacities on that, and each of those capacities affect how much water we use. So we've got to unwind that and figure out how our issues, that three-legged stool, messes with the Villages, and then we move forward. I'm confident we can get there because in our preliminary conversations, the Villages has been very open to different ways that we can do this. I've been very happy with some of the responses from the Villages because I think they look at water and environment from a regional standpoint of what's really going to benefit everybody. So it's to be continued, but that is probably the #1 issue that we need to talk about during the due diligence period.
Okay. The second question I have, Villages just announced today, as a matter of fact, that they just bought another 2,300 acres near the Okahumpka service station by the turnpike?
Yes.
Just north of us. They were paying $10,743 an acre for that property. We're getting $6,944 an acre. Did we underprice ourselves?
My answer to you on that question is no. Prices, and I did, by the way, I did an appraisal on the property. It did come back at $7,000 an acre.
Okay.
So that's available for public review. Frankly, on this type of scale, the number was everywhere. There's property that the villages bought for recently as high as $18,000 and prices as low as $4,000. There was a price in the same location just on the other side of the turnpike, the northeast side or the northwest side of the turnpike. They bought a smaller parcel. I don't know how many acres. It wasn't near as large as the tract that they're purchasing from us for $18,000 an acre. Then under the village of Finney, out on the west side of Wildwood, they bought property about a 200-acre tract for $4,000. Some of the comps in the appraisal report go to areas in Claremont where acreage is going for $6,500. There's another parcel that is in the appraisal report that's out by Black Bear of about $6,500. And so I think also the appraisal report takes into consideration the size of this sale. And I also think that beyond the sale price for the acreage, you have to take into consideration that this is a special sale in terms of a government. So I think we have some liberty to weigh price per acre versus what we're going to return in tax.
Okay.
Okay, so I think that really does have to. So if we've perceived missed this number by $1,500 or $2,000 an acre, we might have missed out on whatever the math is, a couple of $1 million today. But what that's going to return is $4.5 million in perpetuity. And so that number and that growth potential number outweighs if we've missed it. My concern, especially, I think that is probably a reasonable number. I think it probably is maybe a little on the low side. My concern, and what really triggered me more than the sale of the property, was to ensure that we don't lose too much with EPA, and tried to get the best stab at a fair market value, so that if this came back and the appraisal report said $15,000, we'd have been on the hook for 75% of $15,000, which really would have ended to that number. So I think at the end of the day, value on that property is what anybody's going to pay you for it. And what the overriding factor, at least in my mind, which I think is arguable, but I don't think we can underscore the growth potential and the future tax revenues that we'll get in perpetuity.
Okay. I just thought of another question. I said two, but I've got another one. 470, the road itself. For years, the county has been talking about straightening that road out. One, is it going to be done? And two, will that road be able to handle the additional volume of traffic without it being expanded?
Is 470, did that make the 5-year plan yet? I don't think it is on the 5-year plan. It's on the design.
No, it's on the top of the unfunded list. But it is not, money has not been programmed in the 5-year plan.
Okay, let me repeat that for everybody and just give a little bit of background. Major road projects are funded and reviewed through the Lake Sumter MPO, and we do that every year through the 5-year program. The State Road 470 has been talked about for a long, long time, and DC's and I asked, basically, when you see a road project get on the 5-year plan and get funding, potentially that means that's going to happen in the next 5 years. So 470 is an oddball because it's on the 5-year plan, but it's not funded on the 5-year plan. That was DC's answer. Here's what I think. I think the village just has a pretty big political stick, and that that can be perceived good as bad. But I think the villages has a pretty good political stick. I think if the villages purchases this property and we do our due diligence, that road will probably be something that we talk about. Ultimately, any road construction issues are going to be a village development issue, and then ultimately dedicated back to us, which I think is important because that's going to be one of the hooks of why those residents are still going to pay city property taxes, because we're going to be responsible for maintaining those roads. And my guess is that road gets redeveloped and the villages expands into that area. I would think that the villages will have some say-so and the traffic impact, and they'll have some responsibility to help with the construction or reconstruction or realignment or however that road fits.
Okay, good.
But I think one of the things that we do have to talk about in the developer's agreement is that cost is not borne by the city.
Good, absolutely.
All right. Anything else?
That's it, thank
Okay.
you.
I'll just ask the rest of the commission if you want to ask questions, have discussion first, or allow the public to make comments first this time. Well, I see how you guys feel. So we'll open it up for public now. Let public make comments. And
Don Luckich, just a couple of questions came to mind. Number one, the city does not have electric service franchise in that area, which is an enhanced revenue for the city. In the presentation from the city manager, he estimated $4.5 million in tax revenues, but we didn't say what is it going to cost to service this area with police and other elements. I think that's a question the commission needs to ask the city manager. What are the costs going to be? If you're going to produce $5 million, $4.5 million, and it costs you $6 million to service it, that's a bad deal. But I think that's one of the questions need to be asked. I think another question needs to be asked is how is the political climate of Leesburg going to change? Is it in the future, is the city of Leesburg going to be run by the villages? Two questions need to be asked and answered. Thank you.
Do you want me to respond to that second?
Well,
The political one is something that's going to have to be discussed over the next 5 years, not even 90 days, but 5 years, to see if we have to divide up District 3 and come up to where they would have one commissioner. They won't be able to come in a block and take over everything. So
Yeah.
I have raised that issue, but it has to be discussed at a later date.
And I've had discussions too with Mr. Minner about that, and I think it's even a bigger answer than that probably, or that would be involved, but it would probably require some charter referendums potentially to do. But that is a thought, and you know, and I've had discussions with the mayor of Fruitland Park as well, and of course they went and created their districts in anticipation of the growth there of the villages into Fruitland Park, and so that's certainly something that's going to have to be discussed, and I'm sure that our current commission is going to have positions on that too, probably pretty similar to Commissioner Dennison and I.
And what about the cost of servicing the area?
And can you address that, Mr. Minner?
Yeah, the only thing that I think Mr. Luggage brings up some reasonable issues. The only misstatement, I don't know if it was, is, and just for clarification purposes, we do have a franchise with Duke. We have a franchise agreement with Duke Energy in place right now. It was one of the first things you did when you hired
That's
me,
right.
was we
And I
did
have
the
to pay
Duke
the
franchise
franchise
agreement.
fee.
So anything that develops in that area, Duke serves it, and we are entitled to a 6% franchise fee, period.
Is that comparable to the revenues or the profits that would come from servicing the electricity?
Mr. Luggage,
Cost versus revenue.
Okay. We have no cost in building electric infrastructure at that area. It is not our territory. We are statutorily entitled to a 6% to a franchise. Typically at 6%. There's no statutory statement on how much the franchise is, but we are statutorily entitled to a franchise because we have the right to provide a municipal service within the corporate limits of the city of Limits, and we have the right to charge a fee for the use of public right-of-ways. That's the purpose of a franchise. And we have a franchise agreement with Duke that says we get 6%. To the other questions, we have not done a pro forma on what we estimate the cost to be. We can do that during the due diligence period. However, if you look at the model of Fruitland Park, it's been lucrative for them.
Yeah, I just add, I mean, you know, they're not going to be, their residents aren't going to ask us to put in a pool or a tennis court or anything like that. Those are all there and not our cost, which I think is what Fruitland Park is seeing.
Well, plus our services, they pay for our services except for police, and then, you know, if our fire impact fees would cover the fire most likely, and we'll have a mutual aid with them, which will keep us from having to expand our fire department, because they'll be down there, so they'll have their own fire coverage like they do in the rest of the villages, which will kick calls for us from down there and potentially keep us from being able to increase our own fire department and pensions and budgets. And, you know, we charge for water and we charge, and then if we're only making 5% franchise fee on the electric, that's 5% we ain't getting right now on 4,500 houses.
And that's going to be part of the due diligence as we go through the discussing the utilities, fire service, and so forth. I mean, those are going to be parts of the discussion that we have to come to an agreement on those, on some of those terms as we go forward. I'll just add right now as well that and some discussion I've had with Mr. Minner, if we do go forward with this, is that that during those 9 months that we have some public discussion as the process is going through, so we'll have opportunity to discuss some of these things moving forward as well, I would hope.
Yeah, and if I can share, the mayor
Can I
spoke.
just share, please? And then I can
Just
go
a second,
home.
we're in the middle of some discussion here, so
All right.
that's okay.
And I think the mayor shared some of his thoughts with me today. The concept was that this is a major undertaking that significantly changes the face of Leesburg for obvious reasons. And during that process of the due diligence, he wanted to see periodic reports. I suggested that the best way to do that is that during the due diligence process, I make a report under my matters to the commission at every meeting or every other meeting where I'll give you a brief update where you can all have the information at the same time. You can all collectively discuss that issue, and then we move forward and you direct me accordingly. And then there's also then would be a public review and additional transparency as we move forward in the due diligence process before we would potentially close.
Good idea.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. My name is Sandra Ogden, and I moved into Pembroke Fairways 13 years ago. Also shopped around the villages and could have moved into the villages. Chose instead to come to Leesburg for a lot of reasons that I still feel strongly about. I loved old Florida, the look around Leesburg, the fact that it wasn't overly developed. It was beautiful, farms and rolling hills. Then I watched the villages grow around me, and I can now see the villages out my back porch. The rolling hills are now covered with acres and acres of houses. I can drive 15 miles north through the villages and 15 miles west through the villages, and that's what I see. Houses and houses and houses, traffic. I don't shop there because it's no fun. Trying to get in and out of the villages and the parking lots is a nightmare. You even said yourself that Leesburg sits between two growing monsters, one in the villages and one Orlando. I can see your plan would be very good economically, perhaps, maybe, but you will lose Leesburg. You will become the village of Leesburg. We support Leesburg. My friends and I come to the shops and to the restaurants and anything else that we can find that we enjoy, and we look for them here. We really do. I haven't been up in the villages for months because of the traffic, because the restaurants are so crowded and so noisy. So you will lose Leesburg. And I think if you could promote Leesburg for what it is and keep some of the natural beauty, you could have a thriving, environmentally pleasant, quality of life place to live. I think it's a mistake to go down the road with the villages. I don't admire anything about the villages, and I know some stories of things that have been done in the villages that are sad, and they are not for the benefit of the people or their communities. It's for the money. So you'll make money, but you'll lose Leesburg in the charm. That's all I wanted to say.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
From your perspective, when you say we'll become the villages, and the reason I'm asking is understanding that we're talking about a piece of property on the very south end of our town, and they own the property already that's abated up to it. So they're going to be there, whether they're on our 1,500 acres or not. They're going to be there all the way up, like you said, all the way up from there to Spanish Springs. They're there. So my question is how do you see them down there, because they'll have their own square. Everything they do on their property. So what is it, the influence, for example, the shops downtown that you feel would impact or mess up our shops, or the things you like? What is it? What is your concerns there? So I'll understand.
I don't know. I think they could buy out Pembroke Fairways, perhaps. If we go on their model, the shops that they offer, to me, don't offer anything.
No, but I'm talking about the city, because that'll be the villages. That'll, just like in Fruitland
Well-
Park or Brownwood, you know, I mean, that'll be the villages. What will that, how do you see that as a negative impact on downtown, for example?
I don't know, but
Okay.
I like it the way it is.
Yes,
And I
ma'am.
think it offers a lot.
answer your question, Jay.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am. Well, just identify yourself and
Judy Martucci. I live in Pembroke Fairways. We also looked at the villages and did not want to live in a growing new city. I moved here from Columbia, Maryland, which was started in the early 1970s to be the model city by Rouse. It's famous. It was going to be kept in a confined area. There were spaces that were designated open spaces, which is part of what you're talking about selling as a designated open space. And it is still growing and still taking over. And it has inner city problems like any other big city. You asked what it would do to Leesburg. Wildwood had a farmer's market that people in Wildwood who don't have much money could walk to. And they had a lot of people come to the Wildwood Farmers Market. But when Brownwood opened, they took that farmers market out of Wildwood and put it in the Brownwood Town Center. And now Wildwood does not have their farmers market. You talked about how they have the finest quality things, and they do. They have quality, I agree. But most of it is limited to the people who live in the villages. You are not allowed to buy tickets to things that they're having until they've already sold them to the villagers. And do you know how many villagers there are? So it's not going to bring stuff to us here. I worry about the young people, this young family here. That's what I worry about. I'm going to die soon, and my house is going to be sold off. My kids don't want to move to Florida. They want to stay where they are. What's going to happen to the young people here? You're bringing in the voter bases here. You're going to make it so many more people of my age who are going to be voting on what they want happening in Leesburg. And your young people are going to be left out. The jobs you're going to bring in, he can go there and serve dinner in their restaurants. Or maybe his wife could get a job as a nurse in somebody's house changing diapers, not for her little kids, but for the old folks. Leesburg is a family town. You did a great job by being in that college in here, downtown. That college has been marvelous for Leesburg. The college up by the mall is bringing young people back. You go to the mall now and there's crowds of families there. But you don't see that when you go to the villages. You see this person walking down the street and they look like they're 16 years old, and they turn around and it's false advertising because they're around 80. So, and I'm that age myself. I'm not 80, but I worry too. Okay, you're going to get all of these houses with all of these baby boomers. We're all going to die off. The millenniums aren't putting away money, don't have the basis for retirement. What's going to happen to all of these houses when there's not all these old people to buy them? You're going to have a ghost town. Do you really want that property to be a ghost town? Do you really want to push out the young people that you have here? Or do you want to do something with this town for the young people, to make Leesburg the place where the young people can have a family? The villages has not offered to say, okay, we need young people to work in the villages, so we'll buy this property and we'll build affordable housing for the young people who can come and get a job in the villages. They've said we want more of the same. because they are lining their pockets. That's what you're getting into. And I'm sorry, I get very emotional about stuff like this. I had more practical things though, although families are very practical. Without the young people coming up, we've got nothing. The water consumption, which you brought up. We've been told over and over, don't water because there isn't any water. We have a problem with water. Be careful what you're doing. Don't light a match. Don't water anything. And you're saying the water consumption's not a problem? That's another, okay, this is a way to politically put it around and we'll figure this out somehow, in my opinion. The traffic. We live down here, we have on 44, the traffic has increased exponentially since they have opened Brownwood. The noise in our community from the traffic coming by there has increased exponentially. As she said, you can see the villages from the back of our community where it used to be farms. I'm in a book club in Fruitland Park. I'm in a book club in Leesburg. I am in a book club in Fruitland Park with a woman who was in a book club in Fruitland Park. People from the villages joined the book club, moved the meetings to the villages, and threw her out because she doesn't live in the villages. The people that I'm in the book club in Fruitland Park with are on well water on their properties, and they are very scared about what's going to happen because the villages now takes their city water. And where's that going to be pulled from? Where their well waters come from. So I think this is, you're letting the Trojan horse in. And as I saw in Maryland, once you let that Trojan horse in, they don't stop. And I agree with her, you're going to lose Leesburg. I had a friend who had a shop up in the villages, small private shop. I don't know if you ever go up there shopping, but if you notice, they're all big buck stores. They're all the big corporations. There's no little family things like you have down here on Main Street. No little, hi Joe, I know you. You know, it's all the big buck stores. And she had a store that was selling yarn and stuff for knitters. She was told in her contract, you are to sell X amount of dollars, and we get X amount of dollars from what you sell. And if you don't sell that much, we still get that because that's what we expect you to sell. You look up there, how many small businesses are left in the villages? They can't stay there. That's another. And the age factor is what's going to happen to the community. The traffic, the water, he mentioned this is a significant change to your city plan. I think if you're making this big of a significant change to your city plan, it needs to be publicized widely and people need to know that you are making a significant change to the city of Leesburg. And that's not my words, that's his words. Significant change to the city
And let me
plan.
give you just a little rebuttal on some of that, just so, because we got to move along.
And what about the health care? Already, the hospital here is, you can hardly get in lots of times.
That's why
You sit in overnight, or we've had people have sat 2 or 3 days in the hallway waiting for a room. Where are you going to put all these people in the hospital?
Well, first off, that's not my deal. I'm not the hospital. But I do want to address a few things with you. I appreciate that. And I appreciate it so much that this young man who's encouraging you here negated to remember tonight that we voted for something that he wanted for our young people, which was the Frisbee golf in our community for him. We're trying to do something because if you listen to the rest of Mr. Minner's presentation,
I listened.
what he said is we're losing. Everybody around us is growing. Claremont's growing, Lady Lake's growing, Mount Dora, Tavares, Eustis, everybody's growing, but Leesburg. And our young people are going to those areas because they can go to the villages and get Five Guys hamburger. They can go to Mount Dora and get a Five Guys hamburger. They can go to Claremont and get a Five Guys hamburger, or they can come to Leesburg and get a McDonald's hamburger. Because we can't attract them. We don't have the household incomes. We don't have the required things that those big chains look for. No, I've listened to you. Now stop. Let me talk. So we're trying to do something now so that this young man can have some nicer shops here that he wants, or restaurants, or opportunities for employment for him and his family. You talk about all the things that those people bring. When we bring those houses in, just like when we brought Miss Dennison's 3,000 houses in her development or your development, those things came in. Now those are people who drive cars. Those people buy cars. They get those cars serviced. They go to grocery stores. They get haircuts. They go shopping. If you go to the villages, I know probably 40 people in the villages who own businesses. Those are not big chains. There's not any box stores in the villages and downtown squares. Those are owned by private individuals who have chose, like I did when I had my store, to bring in a higher end merchandise opposed to a lower end merchandise. So you're blaming a lot of people. You basically called our city manager a liar about the water supply.
I didn't call him a
You said that's a
liar. I
fancy way
said
for
you can,
politicians.
he
We're not
said
here to
we'll
argue.
figure it out. He
Well, we
didn't
do.
have an answer.
And I just
He
want-
said we'll figure
Ma'am,
it out.
let Mr. Hurley
I did not
This-
call
this isn't a
anyone a
debate.
liar.
This-
I would
So-
not do
Okay.
that.
So my point is that we're trying to do something that does benefit our families too. I have family here. I have children. I know what it's like. I have a 26-year-old and a 13-year-old, so I understand. And I want to make this community. We just opened Saturday a splash pad downtown. That
Marvelous.
cost us $500,000 in a park, and we're doing things. And you think we're going to let 4,000 houses come in here and change the whole dynamics of our city? What we're looking for is some aid to help us so that we can catch up to the cities around us that are already doing this.
I
So I
understand.
appreciate your comments,
I
but I just
understand
wanted
what
you to
you're saying,
understand
but
kind
I
of where
think
we're
we
coming
need to
from.
be cautious.
Commissioner,
Well, sure.
we have to move on to our next
Right.
next comment. Thank you very much.
Spouse.
My name is Jane Keel, and I also live in Pembroke. Several years ago, we had a specialist come down from University of Florida that gave us a talk on water. And the one thing that she said that I will never ever forget is, and I've lived in Florida since the early 60s, she said, Florida will never run out of water, but it will get so expensive that nobody can afford it. And the information that she gave us on how much saltwater intrusion was already in the big aquifer up around Gainesville was unbelievable. It was shocking. Now, I came from 28 years in Naples, and I know that Marco Island had been doing desalinization for years because they had no fresh water either. So my concern is the water problem that we are eventually going to have. And if we all have to do desalinization, that's going to raise our water bills to the point where some people will move because they can't afford it. Right now, my electric and my water are running $2 difference. So I think the water is our biggest concern, and I really think we ought to give it some considerable thoughts.
Thank you.
Hey, my name's Chad Cook, and we have a lot of Pembroke residents here. I live in Okahumpka, right off of 470, directly behind this whole deal. I've been coming to the meetings since Dan Miller, if I'm not mistaken, was doing the rezoning of everything, and I spoke against that, and I'm going to speak against this. Reasons for is because I gotta bring it all back in. When is it ever enough, and how much is too much, and how do we? I don't shop there. I'm not going to shop there. I appreciate you trying to bring me into it. You know, that's cool. But when is it ever enough? When is there going to be a cap on it? Do we have to take that to the state? Is that something beyond Leesburg? Because I think it is, that all this is way far beyond us and needs to go beyond and go to the state. And there's a lot of dynamics that are involved here. Unspoken things. I'm going to educate the people. Okahumpka is home to the second deepest freshwater spring. Bug Springs is 175 feet deep. So, voila, water source for the villages. Don't let them take it. And it's infringing on the biggest nature preserve we have in this area, which is Flat Island Preserve, which is a watershed. And if you know anything about ecology, it's for when there's lots of water and rain. As the Everglades is a watershed for all of Florida, where water can overflow and go into the swampy wetlands. But the swampy wetlands aren't enough. The grazing grasslands on the outside of it are inhabited by countless creatures. And can you bring that slide up for me? Am I allowed to have you do that? At the very beginning of his presentation, there was the map, yeah. It's not a very good map. I wish we had a better one. Because where you're blue, do you have a laser? You have a laser?
Maybe you can just make your point. We don't have a lot of time. You're going to have to just make your comments.
I live right here. The field behind my house is here. You walk over here, that's where the bald eagle's nest is where potential yellow development is. Flat Island runs all along here, all in here. That's where Flat Island Preserve is. And it infringes on that. And the oxygen that old growth forests have, and that whole area is on the verge of being an old growth forest. It has to be undeveloped for over 150 years to be an old growth forest because of the biodiversity and the genetic makeup of the soil that is present, because there's been no disturbance of it. And the oxygen that is created is cleaner, and this isn't just some hippy-dippy BS. I went to a lecture a couple months ago. Paul Stamets, he's the leading ecologist for the world right now, and they're making cures and they're doing things, and they're finding out that old growth forests are essential to our environment because of the oxygen that they produce. So I don't know if money is more important to oxygen, or if I'm like articulating the importance of everything here, because it's really important that we look at the long-term picture and see what's really going on with our economy and our environment, because we could be on the forefront of ecological restoration. We could partner with the schools and the University of Florida, which is in the leading edge of ecological studies and research and restoration. And that would provide avenues for our kids, for our schools. People could go on school field trips and get their biological studies or whatever they have to do to put it in place to get their degree or their credit. All that could be done, and that could all build community with all that going on. It's a safe haven. You could even put the disc golf course out there. Sorry for cussing. But I just want y'all to see that.
Well, thank you. I think you're very knowledgeable about
about ecological restoration. Yes. Flat Island Preserve is very important in that.
This is in the preserve, or there's some
preserve that there is.
It's right next to
500
it.
acres that are there. So.
It's right next to it.
254.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
My name is Phil Ruggieri. I'm with a team of companies, and recently we've been working with Leesburg and Lake County on an economic project on that site. We're a little bit earlier stage, I think, than the timeline that you have, but we've been looking for a site in the Central Florida area. It's our strategy is a multi-use entertainment and commercial and light advanced technology mixed use strategy. We've been working with your economic development team at the city and also at the county. You guys, we have the advantage of working with a number of teams. You guys have a great team. Actually, if you go back 20 years ago, I was the chairman of Special Olympics for the state of Florida, and I got to work with Lake County in our strategic move of Special Olympics to Claremont. So, back when nobody knew where Lake County was. So the trajectory of growth is very, very exciting. We still have more work to do. We just brought a team to the city about 3 weeks ago. One of our strategic partners out of Europe, their specialization is in advanced architecture. So we're very interested in that site. I apologize, we didn't know that there was. I just got word 2 hours before the meeting that the item was being discussed. But we'd like to work with you, give you an option. We very much respect the economics. They're very compelling. It was a tremendous presentation. There are alternatives. I know the clock is ticking, but I just want you all to know as a decision-making board that we can continue to work with your team and with the county's team to give you an alternative. We do have advanced technology. We do have technology that is just coming out of the engineering lab out of Colorado that changes the way water is cleaned and purified. We're pretty excited about that. We have advanced technology in what's called advanced digital media, moving entertainment content around so that we can give different options to different audiences. And part of that would be located here. Part of it would be located in just north of Atlanta. So more work to do, but I wanted you to know that there is an option. You guys have a great team. The location, by the way, is very, very strategic in our minds because of its proximity to the turnpike. As you know, Central Florida gets 65 to 70 million visitors a year. A lot of them are drive-bys as they go past on the turnpike. What we'd like to do is create, some of the location will create a reason for them to get off the highway, to spend some time in Leesburg and Lake County, have some entertainment experiences, spend some money, stay here potentially, and then continue their journey across this fantastic state. So that's what drives our economy in many ways. And you're right, Lake County and Leesburg hasn't participated in some of the boom that's happened throughout this whole region, which, by the way, is one of the reasons that we like this area. We've looked from Tampa to Daytona to Cocoa Beach. We're actually doing a small project up in St. Augustine next to Marineland. So there are some real jewels of locations. We don't like crowds either. We like controlled development. We like economic growth. We like to create jobs for the long term. There will be some need for incremental housing, so maybe there's an alliance with home builders. But we think that, we should, it's my responsibility to let you know that we're in process. If you make a decision, that's fine. But we owe it to you to do a little bit more staff work with your team and let you know that there are other options out there.
How much more time do you need?
Start to finish, we already started, so I would say 90 days, mostly because we're heading into that end of school window. So normally it would be about 60 days, but there's a few school vacations we have to manage in. But we've started the process, so we're well into it. Sorry?
Just one question. I'm sorry. No. Does your project have the ability to bring $90 million in new taxes? Let me react. Does your project have the ability to bring $90 million in new taxable base?
Over what time frame? Per year?
By the next 15 years.
Yeah. We can take you through the model. Yep.
My question was, if you did the project, whatever your project is, when could you have a start date? I mean, like show ready, start the project.
Permitting.
Talking now is one thing.
Yeah, permitting.
And I don't mean to throw Mike under the bus.
No.
But I think that's posturing, because if that was the case, that would have been communicated to me by Mike.
Yeah,
so I'm gonna call you on the carpet there, because I think what you're doing a little bit is posturing yourself to compete with this project.
No.
Because if there was $90 million, then my economic development director had a responsibility to let me know that.
But to be
and
honest,
that was not told.
To be honest,
so I think you're posturing.
Hang on. You asked the question.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think you're posturing.
We have an economic model. We haven't shared it with the staff, so there's no posturing.
Okay.
Is the economic model ready, or is that where you need the 90 days?
We have when you do a site study, we have a generic model, and then we tune it for the location. And we can show you 4 locations that we've studied. Leesburg would be the 5th. But there's no posturing. We didn't share the data, but I wanted to be responsive. So you have to thread the needle. It's
And let me just say, Mr. Mayor, I mean, I respect you coming up. This got on the agenda Friday.
Yeah, I know.
So we want to beat the guy for coming up here on a Monday saying what he has. I mean, to be honest, it hit the waves on Friday when normally hit on Wednesday.
Yeah.
This is not a small project. This is a big project.
Yeah,
so the guy comes up, talks about his project, and we jump on it for saying it's about his project. This is what we're here to talk about, is public discussion on a major project that's going to change our city. And I don't think we should jump on somebody or be adjective when a guy comes up or even talk about our staff, whatever. He has public comment. Let him talk. So we let everybody else talk. I've been sitting here watching everybody. It's 8:05. Everybody's been talking. Let the guy talk.
And I think I met your.
We were in the coffee shop with one of our
that
partners.
Day, so you had several people.
Yeah,
there.
And that was only 3 weeks ago. So we're not.
Well, I'm not here to jump on you, but I'm going to say this right now because I want to make sure it's not misunderstood what I did. This isn't your first time here, and you've been talking about your project for a couple of years. So I'm asking you a question again that I've already asked you once and everybody interrupted. If you get your approval on this property, when could you start your project? And then now I got a second question I'm going to ask you. How many years would you want us to postpone your taxes before you started paying because of your new job, your new project?
I don't want to assume anything, but the cycle
That
time.
means you couldn't do it in 5 years. You couldn't start it in 10 years.
Hang on. The cycle time from closing on the land to digging for the site, the horizontal, and then going vertical is 4 to 5 quarters. I'll take you through the schedule for another 4 to 5 quarters, 12 to 15 months. But we're not. You don't have to. You're going to see an operating schedule that's in place. So.
Aren't you still in the process of just finding your funds for that project?
We have funds lined up. That's the purpose of the visit that we had 3 weeks ago. So, because as you know, for anything like this, funding is the critical dependency.
Sure.
So we didn't want to burn any relationships until we knew that was solid.
I understand that.
Yeah.
Sure.
Is part of this project going to be tax exempt?
What does that mean?
Is part of the project going to be occupied by nonprofit?
No.
Okay.
No. Mm-mm. No, that my night job. I was chairman of the board of Special Olympics for many
That's
years.
not what I was referring to.
That was my night job, best job I ever had. But no, these are all for-profit businesses designed to create jobs, economic value, entertainment, and work alternatives, and to bring some additional technology to Florida, because that's something that we obviously crave. We don't want to be just dependent on tourism or retirees or commercial space. Obviously is growing, but there's some other technologies that we can bring to the location, and they've evolved. Now they're at the point where they're ready to be deployed in a big box location where we can do technical assembly, technical testing, some simulation, some training. So that's why we're pretty excited about working with a group such as yours.
And how many other cities are you considering for the same project right now?
We had looked at, in Florida, we had looked at 2 other sites before we came back here. We had, as Commissioner Hurley mentioned, we had talked to really the county economic development team a while back. We had looked at 2 other sites and then decided that this was a more strategic location. So
you're not considering the 2 other sites at the moment?
Not right now, no. Mm-mm.
Well,
I didn't mean to complicate things.
No,
I was an executive at IBM. That was a great presentation. So it's just we're in stream. So I wanted to make sure that at least you knew about that. So.
And so here we got 2 streams that are.
Yeah, they're very different. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not converging. They're separating here because you've got one, and then the Villages has another.
Sure.
And so we're considering a contract, and where are you at in that, and
how
much of the land do you need?
That site
the entire
is
site.
Yeah, that's the right size. Yeah.
And so there's a lot of
Can you put together a contract?
Yeah.
Excuse me?
Can you put together a contract to compete with this?
Yeah.
Can you put together a contract that would have a non-refundable amount of money, a large sum to be put down?
What do you think a large sum would be?
$100,000. More than that. If you're gonna, and I'm not saying to say no to the Villages here, but if you say no to a contract like this that produces this much income over a number of years, you're talking about a sizable non-refundable income in the millions.
Yeah.
To put up as a deposit to.
With your agreement, what I'd like to do is work with your team to just there's some key economic assumptions. The first thing we look at is land cost, right? Which, by the way, in the big picture, is not a high leverage item because of the size of the manufacturing and the entertainment base. But we want to go through that. We want to talk about job creation because it's a significant enough. Phase 1 alone is 8,000 new jobs. All the way out to phase 3 is over 20,000 new jobs.
Are those here or are those
here
in Colorado? Or
no, here, yeah. But we owe it to you to confirm those assumptions, okay? And if there's any other elements, like some of the environmental factors, those are important, okay? We can't just say, well, we're gonna, plow 2,000 acres and it's gonna be this beautiful vertical site, but, we can work through those, so. But we owe that to you, we owe that to us, and your team is very helpful in getting that done, so.
So the 8,000 employees, what's the nature of those employees?
It's a mix of technology, hospitality, service employees.
And when did you first come to the county?
When did we? I'm not sure. It was probably a year ago. Yeah. It was actually, I met at a Special Olympics. I was at an EDC board meeting. Yeah. Down at
Orlando.
No, the place on the hill above Lake Apopka. What's the name of that?
Harbor Hills?
Bella Colina. Bella Colina. That's where it was. Yeah.
So for me, how much time would you need for your assumptions, calculations to put something on paper to present to the council?
45 days, to be realistic. So.
And in those 45 days, you're sold on Leesburg as being your location.
Well, we ended up here. We didn't end up. We've done the staff work, so we ended up here because this has the best attributes for the mixed use. As I mentioned, drive-by, the size of the site, just the economic environment in the community.
So you've been working with Mr. Rankin at all?
Yeah, but I don't want to mislead anybody. It's just starting, so we're just restarting.
Yeah,
so
but I understand, but
yeah.
When you're saying 45 days,
yeah,
and I've been hearing a lot of just start, not just from you, from a whole lot of people. So,
I know. Everybody's got that.
For me, is you got $11 million offer on the table.
Yeah.
With potential 45 homes.
Yep.
You come at the 9th hour. And I don't remember you being here a year ago, so.
No, we weren't here. We were in discussion with the county.
And I'm just saying, now you're saying 45 days from now, 45 days, you'll have something on paper to present to the council.
We have an economic model. So think of it as a generic economic model.
I don't care about the model. That's gonna be what I care about. Is you put something on paper to say to us like tonight.
Yeah.
Here's my earnest deposit, and I'm ready to move forward. And now you guys make a choice.
Exactly.
Commissioner Christian, if I can, I think the city attorney has.
I had a couple of questions pertinent to critical element of Mr. Minner's presentation. Are you saying you want the whole 1,900 plus acres?
Yeah.
If you were here for his presentation, you heard him say that an integral part of that was that the villages would provide a method of disposing of treated effluent, which is currently sprayed on this site. If the city were to accept your offer, do you have any proposal for that disposal, or are we going to have to go buy more property to do that?
We'd have to take a look at it. I'm not prepared to answer that, so I don't want to mislead you. But if it's practical and doable, I don't know the details, but in our site strategy, we have a large waste to energy module. We have also a new technology called PAA that purifies water, because we're trying to make this an advanced technology, not only just the optics of technology, but the environmental side of technology as well. So, but I don't want to mislead people. We haven't done the staff work, so they're ahead of us, but we can catch up. So, and we'll say yes or no that we can do it or we can't.
And I think that's a key statement.
Yeah.
And I think a critical element of the presentation tonight was we've moved forward with economic development. That was in our best interest. Our best interest was to juggle the ball. The villages, in the time that they have talked to us, has been the quickest, best way to generate $900 million in taxable value with basic ways to solve critical issues such as effluent that brings new development to us in this time frame. I trust my staff that if this project rose to the level of where the village was at, it would have been on my desk. You would have been in my office. There's been another project that has been on my desk and in my office that also sought the purchase of the entire property. But for taxable reasons and effluent reasons, that was not brought before you.
Well, I'll say, to the city attorney, I mean, this brings to the forefront for me some of my concerns about the contract itself, whether this is viable or not. But it brings to me some of my concerns of the contract, which is the villages has a front door out of this. If they just decide they don't want it, they can back out. We have a back door out that, because there's nothing in here says that we can back out of this contract at all. It says that we have to come to an agreement during this due diligence period on franchise agreements, continued use of spray fields, fire service agreement, and so forth. But it doesn't give us necessarily the ability. I mean, if we don't come to that's our back door. If we don't come to an agreement on those things, then we get out of the contract. Yes. So while we're going through a 9-month due diligence period and we're talking about these things, and this gets to something that you brought up, is that do we put the brakes on backup offers essentially on the property? What other options would be there? And then if not, my question to you is there anything that, if we did the contract with this due diligence period here, is there anything that would prevent you and your group from completing this model that you have and still considering the property in case this doesn't work out with the villages? So
at some point, yeah, for some period of time. I mean, as I said, we have a generic foundational model. We have to customize it for this particular site. We've already started doing some of the work, but I want to finish that so we all have an accurate picture and get your input in case there's details that are unique to this location that we're not aware of, because that's usually what we run into.
Because here's where we're at. I mean, we've got we have a pretty good offer on the table from the villages. Yeah. Whether considering whatever negatives there may be, this is a pretty good offer to come to the city and say we're going to pay you some money for a property and it's going to provide this amount of revenue, potential service industry jobs, and whatever that might come. And so that's on the table right now with a front door for the villages to get out of it. So that makes it kind of scary to turn away people that might have a viable thing, but at the same time, we don't have anything real solid from you. So, so that's my question. I think is that if we move ahead with this agreement, I think there's still an opportunity for your group to come and present something to the city, because this is not an absolute contract. I mean, it's a contract, and I think Mr. Minner expressed it to me probably in real simple terms, this is where we become engaged to the villages, but we're not quite married to them when we do this, and the same for them to us is in doing this contract. So
would we have to wait till the end of the 9th month to do anything?
I wouldn't want you to wait till the end of the 9th month, and that's what I'm asking, because even if you did if you were interested in the property, and you would have to put your model together, come to the city and say, here's our model, here's what we're going to do. Will you give us a contract to buy this property under these terms? So you're going to have to do that anyway. Yeah. So you should still be in a position if we did this contract to still do that model, come back to the city along the way and say that, because that does affect our how we come to an agreement on some of these things, because we do continue to have negotiations on some of these terms and what we're gonna come to. So
the village's contract presented to you does not prohibit the taking of a backup contract, as some do. So it would be perfectly permissible for this gentleman's group to put together their proposal, bring it in, and if you guys liked it, put together a backup contract that's contingent on this one not closing. And then they'd be waiting in the wings at the end of the 9 months if the deal was acceptable to you to step in and do it.
Because the way I look at it, I mean, frankly, and if I vote yes on this, and I'm hearing all the comments and everything, but with what I know about the contract and the presentation, everything's been made. If this was a contract I was inclined to say yes to tonight, for me to say no to that contract, it would take you giving me a $5 million check that's non-refundable tonight, and that clears the bank. That says this is, you're going to go do your due diligence on the property, and because you're not making any commitments tonight. I appreciate your interest, and it was a pleasure to briefly meet your group there that was involved, and when I saw them at Bloom's, but when you start talking about business and turning away a buyer for something, and not just a buyer, I think an investor in our community, and the tax revenue that be generated, we can't. It's hard to turn that away. As hopeful as we could be that what you present would be forthcoming. So
yeah. Well, I think that there's the economics, which obviously you have a baseline, and we can deliver our economics. Then you have the strategy. What's the long-term vision, right? And then you have the actual terms of the contract. What do we do tonight, tomorrow, and the next 30, 60, 90 days? I can't commit to a $5 million check tonight.
No, I know. I just threw out a number. I see if you get a bite on it or not. So
but it was a good try.
I think Mike wanted to just chime in on this.
Mike, did you have a comment?
Can I get a drink of water?
Good evening, Commissioners and Mayor. Mike Rankin, Deputy City Manager. There's two things in this world that are critically important to me: my wife and my reputation. I want to clarify some things here real quick. A year ago in this room, with a table sitting here, a tripod there, Robert Chandler there, Sam, myself, and Adam, and a gentleman from this company that came into town from Phoenix to talk about a project that they'd like to bring to Leesburg. Spent 3 hours with them, shook hands, walked away. A little over a year, staying in contact at Christmas and other events. Things are going great in Leesburg. How you doing? Heard comments. We're still working on our project. 3 weeks ago, they brought in a bank from Europe that they were enticing to finance their project. That was 3 weeks ago. I've not heard from them until today, when they learned that this was in front of you. So they were off doing their due diligence, negotiating with this European firm to fund their project. And this gentleman came tonight, and he can interrupt me if he wants. He came tonight to let you know that they're interested in doing this deal. They put their consultant, their banker, on a plane yesterday. So, it is what it is. But I can tell you that there are 5 other projects that we've been working on that we've had to pause because of and this is an exciting opportunity for this project to be flushed out. In economic development, you work in 100 projects and you get one and they give you an award at the end of the month. That's what the odds are. So you talk to a lot and you hope for the right projects to land. Projects are developing in Lake County, and they're going to develop in Leesburg. But we have to do what's best for the city, and right now you're looking at something that's very exciting. It's quite an opportunity. It's a paradigm shift. And as an economic developer, I'm struggling with it because you've got some of the best industrial property along that corridor. But there's other industrial property near that corridor as well. So we're pausing with the folks that we're working with. And Al's correct, we had another individual we've been dealing with for almost 2 years. I think it's been about 2 years that has talked about bringing opportunity. And they've never brought that paper to the table that you want to bring.
And Mike, at this time, there has been no paper brought to the table except for the villages.
That's correct.
Okay? So no paper has been brought to the table except for the villages.
with the
And Mike,
exception of
I mean-
core
and that's
slab.
And let me
before
just
you
ask
too.
too, I think I've had enough discussion that my understanding would be that in your discussions with potential suitors, with, you know, out there, that you're telling them, hey, look, we've got other people interested in the property. If you want this, you need to.
I tell
do
everybody
something.
that we talk to, and it's the Chamber of Commerce pitch, you know, hey, buy quick because we're selling land.
Then
But
one day it's true.
That's how the deals work.
And then one day it happens. That's where we're at. So,
But you have a project in front of you that has brought credibility to the table. We have a contract we're negotiating with Core Slab for a second phase, and we've got a letter of intent from another company that we're working on in property that Mr. Minner has
And in
reserved.
reference to those projects, when we've been away from or very close to a letter of intent, we've carved out that property.
Yeah.
we're setting that is pulled out of this deal.
So part of that is pulled out of the village's deal. When Mike has informed me that things are imminent, that a letter of intent is imminent, I have carved out that property. And to date, the only thing that's been put on our table as solid is the villages. So I appreciate Mike's efforts, I appreciate Mike's comments, I appreciate Mike's passion for economic development. That's what we pay him to do. But the only thing that is solid and legitimate is the promise of the villages, which is still 7 years away. I have a responsibility, a fiduciary responsibility to make decisions based on what I think can happen with input from the staff. So while I appreciate Mike's position, my recommendation to the commission is that we move forward with the villages. We still have work to do on that. We still need to check other things. But the only real thing that we have, that you have paper on your desk, is the the contract agreement from the villages. And even on those parcels that we cut out, a letter of intent from two other companies, one that makes electric manufacturers and one that's a tower company, I still don't have a letter of intent, and Mr. Rankin has told me for a month that a letter of intent is imminent. And that letter is still not on my desk.
And that's not due to him.
No, that's not.
That's due to them.
And you hear his passion about how important it is to do this, but we got to deal in reality, and we got to deal with what we got now before us, not with hopes and dreams. That's what you pay me for, not Mike.
I'd like to add something on the specific issue of the new company, then I'll save my other comments for later. But before I forget, I did ask, because I know it's going to come up, I asked Fred about whether I should abstain on this, and his opinion was that I did not need to abstain. And in fact, because I don't have a legal reason to abstain, there's no statute that says I have to vote on issues that, you know, unless you have to abstain. So anyways, I did ask, and his opinion was I did not. One concern is we talk about financing. Financing falls through. This offer is cash. And two, I just think we can talk about taking a backup offer if it's, you know, a pure contingency basis. But I do think it's important if we go through with this, we're saying we're going to close this deal as long as you do what you've indicated how you're going to do and we do what we're going to do. Not if someone comes in 3 months with an offer we think's better, we're just going to use our back door to pull out, because that's not fair and that's not normal in real estate contracts during due diligence. You know, we're trying, if we go forward with this, it's because we're trying to get a deal done.
And it does say we're going to act in good faith to do these things, but it doesn't mean we have to concede to the will of the villages on these particular points that we're going to have to negotiate still through. And so if there are backup offers on the property in the meantime, and you know, and we're operating in good faith to negotiate these things, and the villages doesn't want to meet our terms on these other things, then we have the right to say, no, this is how as far as we're willing to go on these terms.
And let me add to that. The classic example is the arguments that we got from the Pembroke Pines folks. One of the things that the village is very intent on is getting into our land development code, the land development regulations. Part of this due process is that they're going to petition us with a land development or a zoning classification change that's going to have to go through our public hearing process before closing. And there are like 3 public hearings in that process. And if the Planning and Zoning Board says don't do it, and then you guys, and on a zoning classification, then that means you guys, if the Planning and Zoning Board says don't do it, we don't want that type of growth, and they say King's X, that means you guys have to approve that by a supermajority because it's a planning and zoning change. Okay? So that is significant public input. That's not, this isn't a bomb that's been dropped on the community tonight. This is the start of a process that examines another way. This is also the economic development game. The economic development game is you try to keep projects separate, you try to keep things moving, and they are entitled to some sort of, we're very sunshine, we're very open. But this was not a drum bob. This was the start of a 9-month process that's going to have significant public input.
And I think you have to, you have to remember, we are dealing with the villages as well, and so they're a sophisticated, business, group, and they do business a certain way, and that's not bad. It's the way that's why they're successful, is because of the way they do business, and so they need a 9-month due diligence to go through these terms, and so things still have to be flushed out. But they need a contract in place that says, if we can come to an agreement on these things, then you're going to sell us the property. And
then my other thing, just to say out loud, because we're talking about residential versus now potential commercial, and that's roughly around the $2.2 million a year worst case scenario difference, and the numbers you gave us. That's like giving someone a perpetuity. We can put a number on that. That's like walking away from a $44 million check. So I just say, for me, if you want to come in with a commercial project, my number's a lot higher than $5 million. It's because of that ongoing revenue, you got to make that up, and that's $44 million in today's money, not over time. I just want to be clear about that on a commercial side.
And my only comment, my only issue is that, and I've talked to Al about some, I'm sorry to put this out. My only issue is the affordable housing trust fund element that's not in this agreement. With Secret Promise, we work really hard that groups who bring in huge 55+ age restricted developments contribute to the affordable housing trust fund. As one of the ladies said, somebody has to work in the villages and they need somewhere to live, and unfortunately, new single-family home developments are not happening in Leesburg at a rate that's going to keep up with this even 5 years. So that's my biggest contention with this whole agreement, is that there's no allotment for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund as we've done in other major developments, i.e. Secret Promise. So as I talked to Al, that's a deal breaker for me, and unfortunately, should have been part of our negotiation. I hear what Mayor Bone is saying, sitting at the table, you start talking about franchise agreements, but there's no element to say, I'm gonna be a part of your city. I'm on the south end, but I'm also concerned about the other elements of your city. So for me, that's a big issue biggest issue for me. This whole agreement.
And Commissioner Christian, I appreciate your concern on that issue, but I don't. And there's no guarantee or promise to this, but I think the market starts dictating, the more the workforce housing that comes along with developments like this. I think if you look at in Oxford, for example, and the developments that are occurring right outside of the villages is providing that workforce housing for the villages, and I think those same opportunities could present themselves to.
And I agree, but I think when we do tours, it's the St. Petersburg, we talk to other communities who says, how did you make this happen? And one word that stuck out in my mind was intentional. And I think if we're not intentional in making that happen, then we're crossing our fingers and hoping that it's happened. And who's to say that offshoot is not in Claremont? That I'd rather live in Claremont and I drive 20 minutes to the villages and work, but I'm gonna gas up in Claremont and I'm gonna live in Claremont because they have better development. Last thing I want to see us do is in Oxford is have 4-story apartment complexes for you to live here and just make a minimal salary. So I think for my responsibility as a city council member is to make sure that I look out for those people who may be affected by job opportunities in this huge development, is to make sure we provide a place for them to be able to live and call home, not an apartment, but call home. So for me, the Affordable Housing Trust Fund that the city has, I think is a provider of those opportunities. So for me, and I think the staff should have been negotiating that in the beginning and should have been part of that. I know Al says it's going to be a part of the developer's agreement. And of course, you're not negotiating with the average developer. You negotiate with someone who's huge, and I think that needs to be at the forefront of what we want you to become a part of our city. And that's just me. And I may be the only one, but that's kind of adamant for me.
If I can, this young lady who was my wife Tiffany was her one of her Sunday school teachers back in the day, huh? So,
I saw her the other day.
You saw her the other day. So
She does my glasses too.
She did your glasses.
Yeah.
All right.
She does.
So she's a Sunday school teacher and sells glasses.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Well, I'm Mary Megan. I work for the water department in the Villages. I work for CH2M Hill, and it's a Fortune 500 company that is global right now. And they have 3 big water plants in the Villages that I work at. I work in the Villages every day. I've only ever worked in the Villages, but have to live around it. I've lived in Wildwood, Fruitland Park, and I live downtown Main Street. And I mean, I think it brings good job opportunities because me and my father work there. Everyone works there. But I would like to see from the income to really regenerate our city, because some of the plazas are really downtrodden and they look terrible, and you're afraid to go to some parts of town. And I would like to see the money that we get from the Villages, because I don't oppose it, because it keeps my job. I would like to see that to go back into Leesburg and not just into pockets of the Leesburg partnership, honestly. But I would like to see the schools improve to Leesburg to be to the high standards of the Villages charter school. I had the opportunity to go to the charter school, and I stayed at Leesburg. But I think the Villages is a good opportunity. There's plenty of water. I worked there. I just came there today. I know you're thinking, wow, she's so amazingly tan. And I have to work outside. I have to work quotas an hour. I have to read 150 houses an hour down there, walking. I have my own golf cart. Practically a villager. But I have to work down there. Unrealistic quotas is what I have to work for to stay with my job. 150 meters an hour, and there's a 17,000 meter route down on Conservation Trail, which goes down to Pembroke, and is continually growing. 1 month it was 600. This month it's 1,200, and it's going to be 1,700 here soon. And I have to kick butt to work for these villagers that sometimes don't appreciate me.
You get Mary Megan to come work for the city. There you go.
You got 1,700.
You take me for the water department? 'Cause I got it. I can do it. Okay. See? I see what you're doing. Well, they pay me well, so the money that you get from them, I'm going to have. But...
Well, thank you, Mary.
All right. Yes, I know these people are like really hungry, and y'all look blue in the face. So...
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm happy to follow her, a smiling face. My name is Carolyn Pasquale. I live in the city of Leesburg. I have been associated with this area of Florida since 1975, which is before the Villages emerged. I've seen it grow. I've seen the things that they do. I've seen the things that they brought in to Sumter County, Lake County, Marion County. They are a class act. I can tell you, the Villages is going to build those houses, whether it's on our property or someone else's property. They are going to build them. They are expanding. They have a business plan which works, and retirees love it. Leesburg, the city, there was concern. The Villages is not going to take over downtown Leesburg. They bring in their own big box stores, and they entice them. Any of the entertainment in the Villages is open to anyone that wants to buy a ticket. And the tickets are a lot less than going to Orlando for the same performance. They're wonderful. Their new theater is great. Their Savannah theater is wonderful. They bring great entertainment that is affordable for most of the retirees that are living here in the Leesburg area. And I want to thank the City Council of Leesburg for approving the subdivision that I happen to live in, which is located in the city, but I'm sure there had to be negotiations going on back and forth there. I'm very happy with the place that I live. I do not want to live in the villages, but I certainly have no problem with taking their money. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sandy Stokes. I'm a local CPA, and I think most of you all know me. I just wanted this, everybody's tired. I'm gonna make this real quick. I just wanted to give you all a perspective about, and I understand and probably agree with basically everything that's been said tonight. But I moved to Leesburg 58 years ago when I was born, about a quarter mile right down the street. So I've seen Leesburg as a prosperous citrus town. I've seen Leesburg suffer devastating freezes that made our citrus industry go away. And for those of you who have moved here, there was a time after World War II when Lake County was on track to be one of the wealthiest counties in the entire nation because of orange juice. So I've been president of the chamber twice since 1992, trying to help turn Leesburg around economically and make it viable. Leesburg needs this tax revenue. Leesburg needs the jobs that are going to come from what the villages is going to bring here. This is a piece of property that's absolutely gorgeous. I have walked from Jerry Calhoun's camp out in the middle of Green Swamp all the way to the Turnpike, but it's going to get developed one way or the other. And as far as the water, the comments about the water usage, yeah, there's going to be constraints on our water supply, but if the villages doesn't build there, they're still going to build everywhere around it, and that water is going to get pumped out of the aquifer. And whether you sell this property to the villages or not, none of those things are going to be any different than what they're going to be 20 years from now. So I would love to see the tax base coming into Leesburg. With Al's tenure, you guys have a proven track record of investing those monies in Leesburg. We have a lot of really nice tangible things that we have to show for those efforts and those investments. The latest of which is Splash Pad, which I think is just a incredibly wonderful thing for the children in this town. So, I would hope that you'll vote to move forward on this project. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Bowen. Council members, I'm Mike Berry, Executive Director of Lake County Water Authority. We are, I'm pretty sure we are the largest contiguous landowner to the property in question, and we have been managing that site for quite some time. It's a fairly mature, pretty decent wetland system, and we feel that that it's a really important and unique jewel to the Leesburg area. I guess what I'd like to offer is maybe as you do your due diligence to allow us to be part of that process with you, not just in the sense of public comment, but maybe being at the table, perhaps at the table during all those discussions. I've got 31 years of experience in resource management, water management, and ecological restoration, so I think I know a little bit of what I'm talking about. And the person that manages our property has almost 20 years of land management experience. So I would really offer up our expertise to Mr. Minner if there's anything we can do to be of help. But rather than just from the public comment perspective, we'd really like to be on the inside, kind of working through the issues with you if we could. And Mr. Brown, that's my offer.
Thank you.
Have you reached out to Mr. Minner before tonight and made that same offer?
I'm sorry, say it again?
Have you reached out to Mr. Minner and made that offer before tonight?
No, this is really the first time that we've ever heard about this particular. Otherwise, I would have come a little more formally than just the jeans and the jackets.
On other water issues and stuff,
we have talked in the past.
So we
sure.
talked on that.
I'm just saying, we're here to help and work with you.
Right, and I think that's what I'm trying to offer up is our expertise and our assistance through this process, but not just, I guess, maybe trying to force a little bit more in the sense, not just from a public comment like coming to the meeting and making a public comment, but maybe being on the inside and maybe helping out somewhere that way. So we're here to help also, but we do have a vested interest since we are an adjacent, fairly large landowner.
Thank you.
My name is Amanda Bordenkircher. I am the minister of Corpus Christi Episcopal Church in Okahumpka. It was formerly the First Baptist Church of Okahumpka. And I've been with the church about 7 years. I've lived in Florida 15, in Orlando, and then I came to Lake County because I love it so much. This is my concern. I'm a priest in the church. I don't understand the economics and economic development. I can see that we need help here. See a lot of problems. I see a lot of need. My question would be, and my concern would be for that community of Okahumpka. I've been privileged to meet a lot of the long-term residents and to, in my discovering how to best minister there, learn a lot about that place. And I understood at one time it was bigger than Leesburg and had a thriving hotel and a church, and it's seen better times. But the heart of it is good, and there are good people living there. And as the city's changed and our life has changed, that in some ways that physical, the way it's structured, kind of places itself in another place and time with its historic black community on one side of the road and another kind of a community on the other side of the road. But I think what I would ask of you is to examine the effect on that community. And I know that I don't know what kind of negotiation or what kind of help or what kind of changes can be made, but I know I used to love driving up through Fruitland Park, up past the dairy, out in that area there in Fruitland Park, and I saw the changes that the villagers made to that. Good changes and difficult changes. Little houses left, in the midst of a sea of beautiful houses. So that's just my plea and my hope that if there is going to be resources, and this is seems like it's the way it's going, which bar something it seems like it is, that we would consider Okahumpka and not forget the people there and use it maybe as an opportunity to provide, instead of a 2-lane road with heavy trucks that rumble by, no decent left turn, no real food convenience stores, no real community buildings, maybe a chance to enhance their life too, as well as enhancing the rest of us here who are pleased and proud to live in this great city of Leesburg. Thank you.
All right, any other public comments? Okay. All right, we'll close public comments then, and any further discussion from the commission?
I'd like to touch on the affordable housing that Commissioner Christian brought up, because that's something that I'm certainly concerned with as well. I mean, most of my employees, that's them. They need the affordable workplace housing, and I think I understand the what we do with Secret Promise. I think a difference here is the decrease in amenities we'll end up having to provide versus most developers, because they are kind of a one-stop shop on the amenity game. So I think that number that we keep at the $4.5 million is going to be much bigger than with a regular developer. So going forward, if this goes through, what I would like to see done is, one, I'd like to see us take a portion of that purchase price that we get in cash and specifically put it aside for affordable owner-occupied affordable housing. And then, I probably won't be around by the time that ad valorem revenue starts coming in, but maybe through even if it's done through the Charter Commission, what I could see happening is a percentage of that ad valorem revenue coming in to afford to fund an affordable housing program. So I know we're not talking about it tonight, but I just wanted to hit on that, and in the future, that's something that's also important to me, and I would like to see there. And to touch on something else that people brought up, and the fact that these homes are coming, whether they're in Leesburg or they're around Leesburg, as we've seen with this, and you don't have to look back too far to the 90s when Lake County had an opportunity to be a part of the villages, and for whatever reason back then the political climate didn't allow that, and we've seen what's happened in Sumter County, what's first happened in Lake County. When you look at the demographic numbers, you look at the school system, you look at everything. So we have an opportunity to not make that mistake, and because they're coming, and in the water, that's a big important issue. But we're not speculating about whether the water is available. I've had long conversations with Al about the numbers. These are hard numbers. It'd take you an hour to go through them, and so I don't think he wanted to go through that tonight. But there's also an immediate benefit to right now. We're wasting this reuse. We're spending it on the spray field. So if you care about water conservation, and we can take that and we can use it for irrigation, that's a big win. And in terms of jobs, I mean, I know we have a lot of employees because of the villages. I know a lot of people that these aren't just $8 an hour jobs. There's a lot of people that they've done very well both by starting companies and working in the villages. And it's just, this is just, I think, just a huge opportunity for Leesburg going forward.
Thank you.
Well, I think Commissioner Roebuck is right on. I think the workforce housing, I think, is very, very key. And we talk about all the benefits of the villages, but we kind of miss, Commissioner Bone talked about Oxford. If you look at the Wildwood school system, we talk about Leesburg High School system. Well, if the villages just put one charter school near 470, imagine what happens at Leesburg High School. These are the type of things we already seen happen. Wildwood Middle High School is one school now, and schools are empty. The alternative schools leaving Sumter County, Bushnell, and coming to Wildwood because of empty school. So these are my concerns, that if we're not intentional in our negotiation and how we handle the villages or whoever comes into our city, and we just say, give us a check, we're gonna get some revenue, but not be concerned about the future of our city. Just look around. We look at the positives, but we don't see the impact that it happens. She talked about Okahumpka. She talked about the other side of the road and those African American residents that are there. Just go to Wildwood, go across the track, see how much positive impact went across the tracks on Jackson Street in Wildwood. You got some beautiful houses on the other side of town. You got a playground, but go across the tracks. Go to Sumter County. You see what happens in Wildwood, but go to Bushnell. You see the fairgrounds is improved, but go look at any playground equipment in the Webster Bushnell side. Doesn't happen. So we talk about all the economic benefit, but it's going to be on this councils to be intentional and make sure those funds are diverted to the parts of Leesburg who have held this city up for 150 plus years. So, we talk about, it's not going to affect us. It can affect that we don't put our resources in the right place. We already talking about voting districts changing. If any other bill comes, we don't talk about changing voting districts, but here we are talking about we got to look at voting. We got 5 seats. They now encompass District 3. But we're already changing our charter because of the villages. So here we are, not even got a check, not one house is built, and we're already changing our city charter. So I just want to make sure this council understands that we are here to look out for the entire city of Leesburg, not just get a check, not just get revenue, but make sure those revenues are put in the right places where they need to be. And as long as I'm here, you're going to hear that over and over and over.
Thank you. If I can just address that, Commissioner Christian, I agree with you in your concerns there that you have, and I think that we do need to be aware of what if this moves forward, any revenue that's generated, that we make the best use for it for all of Leesburg, and we don't exclude any particular part of town or group of people in the city. So, Commissioner Hurley, if you don't have anything.
Well, listen, there's been so much said here tonight, and, I want to just, for Commissioner Roebuck, I just basically want to say ditto. He hit on all the points. While I understand where Commissioner Christian's coming from, and I agree, I wouldn't have a problem putting something towards affordable housing. The thing that I struggle with is there's so much good and positive things that comes to the city with this, and to lose that potential over one thing, that's kind of disappointing to me and a little distorted. I'm not really sure how to do that. And we always talk about doing things. As Commissioner Christian, you've said a couple times, let's make sure we support the people who've been here 150 years. And then every time we want to talk about supporting them, we're trying to find money to do that. And here we have something that will benefit. So I hope that we can find a way to, A, get staff to do some better intentional negotiations, and B, find a way to maybe bring some of this in there to where it does balance out. I think I'm a little on the out of that because I'm not really familiar, haven't done a lot of it. If we sold to a course lab, I don't think they donate to the Affordable Housing Trust. So I'm a little, it's new for me, is what I'm trying to say. I'm not up on it. But I do believe this is a good project. I believe that we got a lot of good things coming, and I'm excited about what Mike's done and our city manager. I'm not real happy with the way some of the things have went down beyond our control. I don't like how people play things like that, but I think we've got a good head. And I'm this going to be the last thing I'm going to say. I mean, I'm going to say this. I was not going to say it. But if there's anything that frustrates me at our city commission meetings, and I'm going to tell you, the audience, is when you present yourself because you read something on Facebook for 2 seconds, or you read one little snippet that some reporter put in the newspaper, and then you act like everybody else has got the same insight that you have. When we have a staff with untold amount of years of experience, education, resources, and meetings on these subjects, and then you walk up and say, well, have you thought about the water? Yes, our people have thought about the water, and the electric, and the roads, and the sewer, and the grass, and the trees, and the butterflies, and the birds, and the grasshoppers. They thought about it. That's what they do. We don't just read Facebook and decide, hey, let's buy something real quick and hope it works out. So it's understandable to be passionate, but we hire people because of their expertise and of their abilities, because they have the ability to get the job done and still protect our resources, still protect our way of life, still protect our quality of life, and still ensure that we're moving forward in a positive road. And I'll give you one example. Nobody wanted a prison close to Leesburg. We don't want a prison here. No, we fought it. We beat Coleman down, so they went 1 mile over and bought it in Sumter County. They still all right next door. We just get nothing from it. So the Villages is coming. What they do is good. You don't have to ever go there and like it. I like it. I go there. But there's some benefits to this. We have good people. It's a long process that's coming. It's going to take 7 years for there's anything. Heck, by then I might not even still be here. So have faith in us. Have faith in the staff. Don't read and trust everything in Facebook. And listen to the people who've said here. I mean, we had people tonight say, I live in this subdivision. It's not even in our city limits. I live in this city. It's not even our city limits. But yet everybody who spoke for this tonight has been a resident of the city of Leesburg. So got to give that some thought, guys. Mayor?
That being said, I appreciate the audience and the due diligence that you're doing. You live here. You have a right to an opinion on what's going on, and we serve you. So this is where we're at odds. You have every right to be here and to speak and to let you know, if people know what your issues are, why you feel a certain way. And there might be some things that you bring up that we hadn't thought of. I mean, we don't walk on water. We make mistakes. So the fact that you came here tonight and the others that have already left, I appreciate you. I really do. I only wish, that being said, that, and this was a unique situation because it only came out Friday that this was being done. But in the future, if there's something coming up for a vote or a discussion and you have definite feelings about that, don't discuss it on Facebook. That's not going to do you. I don't even go on Facebook. But the phone calls I got today gave me a totally new understanding of how people were feeling. So please come to the discussions ahead of the vote when available. And again, this time it was a special short announcement. But keep being involved in the city. That's the only way we're going to grow and improve things here. Thank you.
Since you brought me into it, I am going to clarify one thing.
Oh, of course.
I don't have a, I appreciate people coming. That's not what bothers me. What bothers me is when you imply that our staff doesn't know anything or hasn't done any kind of homework. That's what I'm referring to.
You got it. All right. Well, I got like cards of stuff, notes I've taken over the last several days, and people I've talked to, and reading contracts. And I remember when my first year as an attorney, and I was given a trial in a little town outside of Fort Myers, and I had to go over and do this trial, and I got homeschooled by a judge in a little small town there. And I drove home that afternoon, and I was rubbing my face, and I was like, wow, my growth is kind of thick today. And I realized when I have a stressful day, my beard growth is a little thicker, and it's a little thicker today with all the discussions I've had with people, and not just in the comments tonight, but just people around town that I've talked with, I want to say this: I'm a little bit of a dreamer, and you've got the dream of the villages and what they've accomplished, and I hear the comments of the group that's interested in the property here tonight, and the dream that's there, so I'm gonna acknowledge that a little bit here, because I hear that, and I think even as nebulous as it is as a presentation that was made, it deserves some comment, because I listened to it, and if it was a dream that was to come to fruition, it's the kind of thing that that would be good for Leesburg. It'd be good for it creates an identity, it creates jobs, it creates we talk about wanting to be a little, if you want to be a little Silicon Valley or whatever, that to use that property, and that's not going to happen there, but you have somebody that comes in, not necessarily your fault, it's the 24th hour here, but you have somebody that comes in and presents something and says, here, technology, jobs, environment, and throws all those things out there, and so that's I can appreciate your dream and vision of that, and how that could play into Leesburg, and at the same time, though, you've got something on paper here with the villages to do, and I did have the opportunity to meet your group, and I'll tell you, there were some people in that group that probably the commission, I mean, there was somebody from a national broadcasting cable channel involved in that group, and some international people that were there in that group as well, and sometimes things take time to put together and to come to fruition, and it might take a year, it might take 2 years or whatever for those things to happen. So I do want to acknowledge that a little bit, and frankly, as much as a dream that is, it makes the decision for me a little bit harder tonight on the contract, because I think this is a good contract and a good partner to go up to become involved with the villages there. So I do want to acknowledge that. I want to address some of the concerns I've heard too, and I want to say this, and this is to be boastful about Leesburg again. Leesburg is not Fruitland Park, and it's not Lady Lake, and it's not Wildwood. It's Leesburg, and it has history. It has a deep history, and those towns have history too. But we have a deeper history in Central Florida, in this part of Central Florida, and industry and economy that's driven, and we have more to offer here than those towns have to offer. Being from the lakes to the hospital to the airport to the colleges to the people. I think we have some of the best people in Lake County, in the surrounding counties. I think at the heart of Leesburg, we have the best people as a community here, and maybe that goes to the history of just who they are, and other towns can't offer that. So I'm not afraid of Leesburg losing its identity to the villages, because I think Leesburg will always be Leesburg, and it will, and that passion of being a Leesburgian, or I don't know if that's the right word. I think that gets passed on even to those like me who have only been here for 14 years. That this is my home, and you become part of it because the people take you in. So I'm not afraid of Leesburg being swallowed up by a village's monster. And it's not I don't think that's what Al intended it to be, that negative. He didn't mean it that way. It's just a growth, and the amount of growth that they have. I don't think we'll lose that. And in fact, I think the people in the villages appreciate what we have here in Leesburg, and they already more and more are coming to Leesburg and to downtown. And you go downtown on a Saturday, and more you're going to run into people who are coming down from the villages to eat and to go to the market or whatever. So I'm not afraid of that, and I do think it's a great opportunity to partner up, and so those are my comments this evening, with a little bit of a dream thrown in there as well that I didn't expect this evening before I came in. So That's the only comments I have. So if there's nothing else, we can go to a roll call on that.
Commissioner Roebuck?
Yes.
Commissioner Christian?
No.
Commissioner Hurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Dennison?
Yes.
Mayor Bone?
Yes. The votes were there for the 3 votes anyway, so I could have thrown a vote for the Dreamers out there, but I'm excited for Leesburg and the opportunities that's ahead for it, and I hope that we can work things out with the villages to make this happen, because I think it's going to be a continued catalyst. We've got a lot of momentum in the city with the things that we're doing, and I think this will continue that forward. But thank you. All right, City Attorney informational reports.
I have nothing tonight, Mayor.
City Attorney items.
No.
That was City Manager items.
Nothing this evening.
Okay. Any more public comments this evening? Okay, roll call.
Commissioner Dennison?
Couple things. The gas station at the end of Main Street is really looking bad, and when are we going to do something as far as giving them tickets or violations or something to force that property to be cleaned up? I mean, that's the entryway into our downtown area, and that's a mess. I don't want the city to be forced to buy that property, but let's force some cleanup down there, okay? The roundabouts, I've been hearing a lot of people talking about it, and of course this last meeting coming up with a petition. They are not in favor of roundabouts, and because of the truck traffic on 27, I agree with them. I am not in favor of those roundabouts coming up 27. I foresee a lot more accidents. I don't think that's the way we should go. The disc golf, it was passed tonight. I just want to remind you that Stock Subdivision, we promised them approximately 2 years ago, since Stock Subdivision came up in tonight's discussion, that we would put sidewalks there for the kids, so they don't have to walk in the road with that cut through from behind the post office. Also, that main road that the kids are walking on floods when we have heavy rains. So why are we forcing them to walk 1 in the street and 2 through floodwater? We told them 2 years ago we would put sidewalks in there, and I want to see it happen. The other thing, on May 20th, you heard a presentation earlier about the water safety at Venetian Gardens, and that's going to be a big event. So let's take care of our kids and make sure they're safe around water. And that would do it. Thank you.
Commissioner Hurley?
I couldn't be there for the splash pad grand opening. Sorry I missed that. I was playing in the golf tournament for Little Miss Leesburg. There's some cuties, and it was good. And I'm excited. I went down there today. There was probably 25 kids in the splash pad, and probably another 20, and that's on a Monday during the day. So it was exciting. The pavilion, I got to go through that. Just finished out. Looks good. People were using it. So I want to say kudos and good job. I'm glad that we passed this. I hope we can find some ways to get everybody on board and make it where it works for everybody. And I had something I was going to tell you.
Can't call him.
I can't call her.
Can't call him.
Sitting here right now, I wanted to tell her what it was. So when I remember it, I
gave him out to 20
I'll
seconds.
come back up again.
Commissioner Christian?
Thought about it.
No.
Please don't forget the Neighborhood Resource Center groundbreaking, I think Thursday. Hopefully everyone will come out on another big project in the city of Leesburg. Also, Lieutenant, is it Lieutenant? I was in insurance office near Stock Subdivision, and there's a huge complaint when the light turns red that so much traffic down South Street, people are cutting through the parking lot of the a little plaza right there, and I just was getting some insurance, and they were cutting through, and I'm afraid that someone's gonna get hit, one of the kids cutting through. I guess they try to meet the light so they get through by the post office, so they're cutting through the parking lot. So we may just want to just sit out there one day and just give warnings not to do that. And also you know, my vote, no, I know we had enough votes to pass it, so I'm not against the development. I'm just real big on making sure we take care of the Leesburg residents who live here and make sure we provide safe housing for them. So that was my real no vote, and I've articulated that to Al, so he knows, not a shocker to him, so he knows. So hopefully by the time we get to the next, I can vote yes, because he's gonna have some funding from the villages, because they're gonna agree with me that we need to make sure people have a nice place to live. That's part of negotiation skills. See how good he is. That's all I. Oh, you thought about it.
Pressure's on.
And roundabouts,
Yes.
they do work.
No, they don't.
Tiberius got one. I was on that jury
27
duty
is not
today,
wide
and
enough to
they got
handle the
one.
truck traffic
What do
and
you think
roundabouts.
DOT's gonna do? Put a 4-foot roundabout in there?
Hey, do you know the size of the track?
She think about on that McDonald's with DOT. We don't want to go there, right?
No. The size and the amount of truck traffic up 27 and the speed. Nobody's
When will we
doing
know
the speed.
something, Al, on what their full intent is? The pros and cons.
It's going to be months. Are they in? They're still in the design phase.
They've got to fund the design in order to go. The next step is getting money so that they can start this.
We may not be able to hear you there.
Sorry.
Right now, the project is unfunded for design. We're working with DOT to try to get them to allocate design money. And we don't, I don't know when that's going to happen.
Does DOT know trucks drive down that road?
Well, they have the counts. They know very well.
Know that.
They know very well.
DOT doesn't know it.
The simulation that we ran included trucks.
DC, the question I've heard repeatedly from people is, how do you route those big I-beams from Durastress that currently come down Citizens Boulevard and turn and go south on 27?
Yeah,
Without taking up 2 lanes at a time.
I've heard that same question.
Good.
And
Move everything over
yeah,
to
they will have to figure out. We'll have to figure out a different route, or they'll have to shut down some portion of it. But
I say that may change when they redo the Dixie 27 intersection and allow them to make the left there, which they can do now, but they have to stop traffic, because I've seen them do it there
the
too.
only problem with Durstress said, but the only problem is when you're turning south on 27 off of South Street, you know how high it goes up right there?
But they do it sometimes to stop traffic when they do it.
Yeah, but on some of those, the trucks are so low.
But and I was saying that intersection is going to change.
Yes.
We're still
well,
waiting
especially.
on the plan. But that's right. Yeah.
I'm sure Durstress makes enough money to get a flood of troopers and stuff.
They'll figure it
They
out.
get the traffic stuff.
And that will clean up 27. I think that will help us with the 27 appearance. So. No.
If I were taking a guess, I would guess that DOT will find some design money in their next budget cycle. But then we'll go through the design process is going to be 18 months, probably maybe 2 years, and all of these kinds of questions will get worked out.
Good. And I want to see a truck going around that circle with your car next to it to see if you're safe.
I'll be safe.
Good answer, DC. Good answer.
Commissioner Roebuck?
Well, speaking of roundabouts, our semi trucks go through them every day in the villages, and I'd be happy to
But
go.
they don't have the traffic we do.
I think you'd be surprised if you looked at the traffic counts, but they go through fine. I'll be happy to put my car there next to them. Anyways, the golf course, the developer now has got a for sale sign. He ain't gonna develop it.
Oh God.
And I brought this up when he did it because I was very much in favor of it. That hey, we're gonna let you develop. That means you got to maintain the golf course.
Right.
If you don't, because we don't have an exemption like the county does for abandoned golf courses.
Right.
He's putting it up for sale. I think it's time. Code enforcement, no more. We'll work with you. It's
That was
getting
on my notes
compliance.
tonight today,
Okay,
too.
so
that was
I want to see full compliance. Also, code enforcement. The mall has been screwing around for over a year and a half now on their sign. You know, we let them put in the big LED sign, and part of that was they then immediately after had to put in landscaping and a fountain. Again, staff has been working with them, and they have broken repeated promises, and I think it's time to just tell them, you're not in compliance, take the sign down and fix the landscaping and fine them. I mean, they've not been good corporate citizens in that regard.
Okay, Commissioner, if I can address that, and I don't know everything that's going on out there, and if they're not showing their cards or whatever, but I would encourage us to continue to be patient with the mall there. They've got some things that they're trying to do, and I don't know if you're aware of them or not.
I'm aware. I've been dealing with staff before I brought this up for a year now. And the one that put me over the edge is when, we put a bunch of money into a mall up in some other state, so we didn't have it to do here. That's just not my problem. They committed to something. I hate that sign, and I voted for it because they said they needed it. And, we don't let other people that are out of compliance get a year and a half. I think it's just beyond working. So, anyways, my thing is they need to be in compliance. Maybe there's 3 others that don't feel that way.
I think we need to get them on. I would say let's get them on a timetable with whatever with what they got going on out there.
And staff can address that. They've broken multiple timetables. The most recent was, and this was in December, is we've got these things going, but we promise there will be landscaping supplies on site in March.
Landscaping shouldn't be no problem. I mean, maybe building your restaurants or paths, whatever, but the landscaping, that shouldn't be that hard to do.
They've broken promise.
Just push and dig a hole, man.
So,
dig holes.
Then another one on back to code enforcement. I think the sidewalk seating looks great downtown on the bump outs, but 2 things. One, they shouldn't be allowed to use it until the fencing is up, because we were very specific and had a lot of debate about fencing around it. And 2, if you don't have the bump outs, you shouldn't be able to put a table in the middle of the sidewalk.
Absolutely.
And that's happening. So I think I'd be happy to let him put the bump out in. But and then on the kind of 470 Okahumpka area, Sandy Stokes brought up this idea, which I thought was good. Fruitland Park at one point sent out a letter to areas where they were annexing around and try to avoid some of these spot annexations. Sent out saying, hey, we're doing some annexations here. If you're interested, and they gave a window that we'd let you come in at no cost to you. And I think there's some other areas as well in the city where we need to look at that and just try to incentivize some people to come in the city. We get some tax revenue and not have these big gaps, because we got a lot of gaps, and we're providing them a police and fire as it is, even though they're in the county. So I think I'd like to see staff come back with a proposal on a letter and how we could do it without a cost to property owners to encourage some more annexations. And that's it.
Mayor Bone?
Yeah, I want to just commend Al and Mike as well. So, on putting together the deal with the villages here, and then also just with the efforts that have been made out there on 470. I would imagine to some extent with that's Mike's baby out there, and if this deal does go to fruition with the villages, it's like you kind of lost your baby maybe a little bit. I don't. Yeah, and so there's going to be other opportunities. That's what I was going to say. We're going to find new babies for you. But I appreciate all your efforts that you've made, and we're still working on some with the property that we've pulled out for out of that as well for the industrial, and then Al, for the work that you've done to put that together. I think I've got a couple at least one code enforcement issue too, and that's those signs are I'm still seeing those mattress signs out there.
Yeah, we're on the snipe sign alert.
But do we have an ordinance that says? Did we find out?
We pull them. They get thrown in the trash.
No. Do we have an ordinance that says if you advertise that you're going out of business, then you've got 30 days to go out of business?
No.
So then, can we do an ordinance that would say that?
I think so. Yes.
Okay, I would suggest that we do an ordinance that when you say you're going out of business, then you're out of business in 30 days. Then we can fine them for not being out of business, not for their sign, but for every day that they stay open.
I would support that ordinance, especially if while at the same time we're there, we did an ordinance that addressed businesses who have trash cluttered all around your church next door because the commission didn't do it right the first time. Thrift stores who have spare tires.
Yeah.
You don't look at that because you're on the wrong side of town. You need to start driving out west.
I drive all around the city. I want to again recognize the splash pad, and that looks really nice out there, and just a number of people that are out there in the park. We went out yesterday to the playground, and the number of people that are playing there. It does bring up a couple of issues I've already mentioned to Al. There's already just trash out there, and just that quick like that. And another issue that I noticed is people setting up canopy tents out there, and I would say for safety reasons that might be something we want to think about. The partnership just had an issue on Saturday with people at the market, and the tents that they have on the market got blown up to the second floor windows there and so I think there's potential safety issue with setting up
But
tents.
I don't know that we have to be careful with that. I think because in the park you can always set up a canopy tent throughout the park.
Well, there are people. They're right there where people are. If you're setting them up out in the open and somewhere like that, but they're right where the people are there. It's just something to look at. I was at an event Saturday night at the community center, and an issue came up about the Wi-Fi. And just curious if we can do something to make the Wi-Fi better there for at the community center. They were trying to play some music through the Wi-Fi system there, and it just runs so slow. So somebody had to run it through their data on their phone. That's something we can look at. Another code enforcement thing. We're getting ready to spend a lot of money on the 27441 section there, and there is I hate to pinpoint a business, but there's a car repair shop there, and they've got a car right there on the sidewalk that's stripped down to just the frame and the engine. It's been sitting there for months. The cars are giving birth to other cars. It just keeps growing and growing, the number of raggedy cars that are sitting out there. I think it's next. It might be next to Takis there or something. Allen's.
Yeah, I just took my car the other day.
Did you? Yeah. Be careful. They eat them. They keep them or something there. I don't know. You may not get it back.
Old red.
Yeah. But at some point, I know with car repair shops, it goes from being a car repair to being storage and salvage, and you're scrapping cars and that kind of thing. And so you've gone beyond what you're permitted to do there. If we can, because that's pretty unsightly for the amount of money we're going to spend for there. And then
You can call it an auto thrift store, and he can keep all the crap out there he wants.
And then the other thing, and this is kind of a wild one out there, that just one last thing to mention for future thought, or just say we don't want any interest at all. And I've had a meeting with Al in a community, or one of our citizens in town, and there's a group of people that want to have a cricket field in Leesburg. And you laugh, and
Then let them buy the property and put it in.
And all I'm saying is that if we want to look at that, I mean, you're talking about Claremont again made a proposal to provide them with a facility down there to do that, and I'm not saying do it. But if it's sometimes you just poo-poo ideas and not talk about them anymore and say we're not interested at all, and then other times you say that kind of sounds kind of odd, but maybe we should look into it a little bit. There's a demographic behind it that could bring some little more economy to the area. They bring in groups, they have tournaments, and there's potential for things to grow out of it. But anyway, I just want to acknowledge that publicly that there is some interest to do that. They want to do it. The largest number of them that play in this particular group are from Leesburg, and so they want to be able to do it in Leesburg, and they feel like they can make some things happen. And then that's all I have for tonight.
Al, I've spoke to you, Mike, and Dan over the last month. So we've been since so much code enforcement. Can we go ahead and put that on agenda for next commission meeting?
Yep.
We spoke about this at Links, and we found a couple things that I know Dan and Mike have been working on. So I think if we could go ahead, since everybody's in the straighten it up, clean it up, make it look pretty.
Don't get about stay and save motel since we talking about code enforcement.
Well, I'll have a report for you next time if that's moving along.
All right, way to go, Fred. I know, put the bulldog on and be over and done with.
So to prevent you from having the longest commission meeting you've
Yeah, I
ever
think
had,
he
4
won. He
hours,
won.
can I make a motion to just leave?
No, let's take out.